flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right, welcome to Monday morning's meeting. Everybody get a chance to look at the minutes from July 21st and July 22nd.
Yes, make a motion to approve.
First,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Approve the claims with the county auditor for the amount of $437,296.65.
Motion to approve.
Second.
At a first and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Approve engineer employment contract.
Okay, that's something I've been working on because Iowa Code, we're supposed to have a contract. Employment contract with the county engineer along with the bonding. The bonding's in place. And with the qualifying amount. Been working with Karen and Brian and Sean on this. The only thing I kind of started out with the existing one that was in place that expired is that, only thing I heard from Sean is the dates, the start date and ending date on it. Well, then on the signatures, it had the effective date and it should have been signed date. So that is the only thing that I knew that had to be changed on it that I heard from the county attorney. Sean's been very busy, like his office always is, to get a final back to me and Karen, and I don't know if he's reached out to Karen since I last heard an email from him last Thursday, if he said anything different. I know he was working on court cases and had a heavy workload, so.
The last thing I heard from him was that he tried to take a look at it Friday and never got back to me. Back when the last contract expired in June of 2022. It just had, like you stated, I wish it had just said signed on 6/17/19 instead of the effective date. So that's why that was changed this time.
So that's the only thing me and Karen had only heard back from the county attorney that was a discrepancy that needed to be corrected. So I guess I would go ahead and make a motion to approve this agreement. And there's all the supervisors need to sign that along with Brian. And I guess I would make a motion to approve it, pending if Sean gets back to us with any other further discrepancies. Otherwise, approve it for signing.
I would second that.
I got a first and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, so once we hear back from Sean, then let us know and we'll
Okay.
sign it. All right, next up is place on file the following manure management plans. Pork Chop Ranch Township, Sumner, section 27. Greg Becker, Westford Township, section 17. The Hill, Fremont Township, section 7. Progressive Pork LLC, site 21. Richland Township, section 20 of Delaware County. K&K Farms, Buffalo Township, section 21. CNC Ag, Byron Township, section 31.
Make a motion to place them on file.
Second.
At a first and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Discuss/approve secondary roads funds transfer.
Well, when I was on vacation a week ago for fair, I got an email stating that there was not enough funds transferred to meet requirements for secondary roads. It was short 75,000, which would be the 75,000 that the board zeroed out during the reestimate during budget time. Okay. At that time, I assumed everyone knew what was going on. I do not track the requirements of funding of what Brian needs. I take his word for that. So the last fund transfer we had did from rural services into secondary roads was May 20th. And now it's July and he's short. So we went ahead, and this has happened before, and I visited with our audit firm regarding it. So we went ahead and did the transfer of 75,000, made it an accrual, so it technically is for last year. But then, however, we will have to do a budget amendment in the general fund for 75,000 because that was not budgeted.
I guess when we had that discussion, when we were working on budgets and we zeroed that out, none of us knew what that $75,000 was, because I remember the discussion about it, but hindsight being 2020, now we know.
Hindsight being 2020, we just won't reestimate things.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you guys all got my email on Friday that I sent out. And I hadn't heard back from anyone, but I'm really disappointed that this is all getting blamed on me. This is not my responsibility.
No, I would think it'd be your blame.
Oh,
We're all to blame here because we did it.
Well,
The email
I guess
to the
I didn't
DO
understand what it was for, so.
yeah, the email to the DOT stated the auditor did it to me again. I'm not tracking their budget. He's the expert on what he needs per code, per taxation to fund his projects. That's where my frustration comes in.
Right.
Well, hopefully we can move forward and that problem will be corrected. Always like to solve problems, and so they.
My intentions are when I put the reminders out to transfer the funds, that I'll include the amounts.
The main thing is that, we are under here for time transfer, and what last thing I seen from the DOT that, they're gonna make exception on here and go ahead and do this one-time allowable late transfer, so we're all good to go with them, so I would make a motion that we go ahead and, move the resolution and make the transfer.
I'd second that.
Got a first and a second, all in favor?
All right.
Aye. Motion carries. All
Chris, does
right.
that have to be a resolution?
Right here.
We need to have a roll call on that.
Yeah, probably should, just be on the safe side, please.
Kurt's aye.
Vogel, aye.
Or I,
Thank you.
the next issue here, we got him down for 9:30 and they're not here, so,
Can we just move Brian up with the speed signs then?
yeah, we can move.
Well,
We got plenty of
we
time.
got plenty of time.
There are some serious concerns within secondary roads on putting up the speed feedback signs on all the schools there.
I understand that.
And it isn't just the initial cost. Now, the question is, assuming that the school is still going at 140th Street, there's discussion of that converting, and so we've got one at a school at 110th. We've got a school at 120th Street.
These are on the pavements. There's
On the
like two schools that I know about that's on the pavements.
4 or 5. It depends on how you want to define the pavements.
I was
Alright.
talking Fairbank Amish Boulevard, the one that's most traveled by
Yep.
tourists.
All right, 110th Street, there's one just sitting adjacent to 13 at 110th Street. You've got one at 120th Street that's adjacent to the pavement. You've got one currently or had been at 130th Street. You've got one at 150th Street. And I should have just printed out, I went to Google Earth and looked at them all too. At 175th, just south of 175th Street.
And I'm not asking to fund it this year. What I'm asking for is like, in the future, let's look at this because I think it is a safety feature. I think we do need signs out there that says your speed is this. This is an Amish school. These are where we have little kids with horses and buggies.
Mhm.
And
We've had-
I feel like it's a safety issue that we need to remind people, you need to slow down here. Because we're aware of it. We live in Buchanan County, so we're aware of it, but the people that visit out there aren't.
Here's the thought, Dawn, just a thought on this, in a good discussion. why don't we try and get this included in our local road safety plan when we have our meeting in September, or I'm remembering September 3rd, but I might be off a week or a few days. Try and get it included there and then try and see if we can't go after some programs to get safety funds for it.
Okay,
I think that'd be a good point.
Yeah, because that's entirely different than the situation in Hazelton. We're on a state highway.
That's right. Yeah, and I sent that out so you guys kind of knew the rules that the state put in there, and Dawn's completely replied back, you're completely right. They put such a small window in there that a lot of our communities, such as Hazelton and Lamont, both are excluded. They don't have enough people
great.
to meet the guidelines that the state set for their, on state highways.
Well, Quasqueton doesn't either.
But Squasqueton doesn't have a state highway anymore.
Oh, okay.
And so that automatically excluded them.
Well, if you wanna look at a sign, that sign there, I don't know what's wrong with it. It's very dim. It don't show up very good at all.
It's-
because of the lens,
It's old.
it doesn't show up with a hoot.
Okay, it's old is part of the issue, Clayton. It's about 12 years old and they figure their design life is 6 to 8 years. And we've replaced the batteries in it at least twice. The last time we couldn't get batteries because they considered it obsolete, and that's where we worked around and found some others that we modified to get in there.
This has been kind of our move around sign to different communities. It's
Yep.
been all over since I've been a supervisor, different communities and stuff. I was wondering if you could fit it in somehow in your budget stuff, if maybe we can get a new one purchase one and kind of get an updated sign to move around, because this one doesn't show up very good at all.
Clayton, that's something I think would be real practical, and that way you're kind of addressing where the complaints are coming from to an extent. The way we got this particular sign was we were involved with a study going on through Iowa State, through Shauna Hallmark's office on trying to slow the speeds down coming in small towns. And so they actually bought us 2 signs. The other one just flashed the speed. If it would flash if you're going too fast. And it's died a few years ago too.
I would like to have you check into just getting a replacement and, well, we can keep using the ones we have because we bought a new battery for it now. So.
Here's a question I'd like to carry a little further, and actually there's some programs that the sheriff's office can get a discount on them. But we'd had this discussion of partnering with the sheriff's department on doing this. And getting one where it'd be trailer mounted and then they could move it around too.
Yeah, a trailer mount would be good.
And it would have the sheriff's department's logos on it and such too.
The other part of that is, that's not something, can you still put this into your traffic safety plan and work with the sheriff's office to do this in conjunction?
Sure, yes. And about every year or two, the subject comes up with one of the deputies or even the sheriff. The sheriff, just about like me, you're always tight on the monies, and so you try not to spend what you don't have to.
Well, would you be willing to work with Scott on that, have a discussion with him and?
Absolutely,
something to get
absolutely.
Back to us?
Yeah.
And now you're talking about the maintenance and upkeep on these, like the newer signs, do they have as much maintenance and upkeep? I know the one we have is kind of aged.
Good questions, Dawn. I don't have those answers. But I know some of the concerns the guys have, especially if you're trying to, what happens when they get snow on the lenses and such?
There's no heat.
Yeah.
Melts it on.
I don't know.
And the solar panels get covered with snow and then your batteries freeze and, yeah. There's some unknowns in here. It's going on in small towns. Why not? Yeah, I can try and visit with some of the people that
Is that the case? Hazelton has a permanently? No, Fairbank has a.
Fairbank has a permanent one. Fairbank has the permanent one and they bought it themselves.
Right.
And I think talking about Quasti, because we got that issue with that intersection down there coming in around that curve by the cemetery and stuff. I wish Quasti would just move ahead and make that investment and buy a sign.
Well, and after looking at the price, it's not that
Yeah.
cost prohibitive. It's $5,000.
Yeah. Yeah, it's Don, good questions, all of them. And
One of the things on Fairbank Amish Boulevard, you've got 3 school districts between the Amish schools, the
Perry.
Posse, and the Jessup School District.
Yeah.
All operate schools on there. I wonder if I know the Amish community has donated money to certain efforts on things, on as far as safety and that type of thing. Whether they might be interested in partnering
Partner on us.
on a sign,
Well, I,
series of signs.
yeah, and that's something that, if you start talking, I want to say Davis County, we got a donation from the Amish in the vicinity of 45,000. And this, I've mentioned this before, we've got some documentation now about how the horseshoes destroy the asphalts. And we know that the steel wheels grind up the rock. And, actually within ISAC and the county engineers, there is some efforts to try and get a buggy tax, a wagon tax, I think is what they're using in the description. So there's some efforts trying to go that way. Davis County, the Amish community donates them about 35,000 a year, which helps.
Right. Because I mean, I hate to, like, I don't want to be harsh on our Amish neighbors because they do bring in a large portion of for tourism.
Traffic, yep.
I mean, and I know Lisa can speak to that.
Yeah, they bring in a large amount of traffic, which creates some issues and concerns too.
Right, but they also,
'Cause-
they also have sales, and their sales tax comes back into our,
Yeah.
Buchanan County, so we are getting a local option sales tax from them also.
Yeah, a lot of what they sell, we use the term dented can stores.
Yeah.
Yeah,
there's
and
no
it's-
Sales tax.
And there's no sales tax.
On the flowers and all the other stuff they sell.
Yes, yeah, and that's and some of the services too. So,
Right.
yeah, and that's not an argument. I'm just saying, for what secondary roads gets back compared, we don't really get anything from that. We're just meeting the minimum on our property taxes.
Right.
So,
That's where a lot of your funding that we transfer you is local option sales tax.
but if you weren't sending me the local option sales tax, you would have to be sending me the property taxes or we wouldn't meet the minimums.
Yes,
Right, but it helps.
all the local options.
It helps the county, but not,
To rural services, your fund transfers all come out of rural services.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is you would have to transfer me because of meeting the minimum valuations, you'd have to if we didn't get any local option sales tax, that money that I'm getting would have to come from property taxes.
And then I understand that.
Yeah.
I mean, you're gonna get your funding one way or another, but
Yeah.
this is a portion of your funding. So it helps the county as a whole
It
because
helps the
that's
county as a whole.
the $75,000, that's 2 janitors? I don't know, that's personnel,
Yeah.
needed personnel, so, we definitely want to keep our personnel.
Yeah, no, we're not arguing that. We're just saying that, hey, I get a lot more damages than I get actual benefits in secondary roads from the traffic. Now, the only place it does add in, because I don't get anything additional from property taxes. Matter of fact, the houses don't tend to be as valued as high. And that can change over time with running water and electricity.
Right,
But nonetheless, that's not,
Well, if you work with the sheriff on that, see if
Yeah.
you come up with something, let us know back,
can do.
Approximately how many signs are you guys thinking, this
Well,
estimate?
there's truly 4 or 5 Amish schools. There was 5. The one on 140th Street, there's rumors of it converting, and we didn't know it's converting to an Amish school or a residence.
but you take that times 2, because you gotta have one coming.
If you're looking at 8 to 10
So,
signs,
and what I was thinking, like, they don't have to all be done overnight, like you do the both ends. Like you have the Amish school on one end, you have the Amish school farthest on the other end. Maybe you start with those two, and then that's gonna make people at least aware that there's some in between too.
Mhm.
I mean, it keeps it in their mind.
but you've got about 11, well, we said 5 here, there's about 8 to 9 other Amish schools out there too.
I'm just talking about hard surface roads.
Yep. Yep, and you've got one Amish school on C-57 over by the Buggy Maker.
Yeah.
That's right there, Grand Avenue intersection with C-57. They're on the north side of the road. So now
I mean, like I said, projects are baby steps sometimes. You start
Yep.
with 2, then you add 2 more, and then you add 2 more.
Yep, that's true, Dawn. On the other side of the coin, it's sort of like nickel and diming yourself in your budget too, because I'm adding these expenses, I'm adding these expenses. And once you get them in, it's hard to get them out too.
Well, then we hope that right from the get-go, you don't wind up, but anytime you buy something, equipment, then you got in maintenance costs, future maintenance costs.
In there, that's a given. Even when you go through the federal grants, they usually require you to, and they may not on something like this signs, but to maintain for 20 years. Well, that probably isn't the case on something like this.
That's what the state DOT had on.
Yep, requirements.
Is that something that you add to the agenda then for the safety meeting in the fall?
Well, I don't even set the agenda, but that is something we would bring to the group that's running it, but I can definitely reply back to them and copy Dawn that we are definitely interested in trying to improve the safety in the Amish community and feel strongly that speed feedback signs would be helpful.
And that also gives us as a county valuable feedback as far as what's going on out there too. Like what is our traffic count and are they speeding? And, some of that data is valuable.
And I like the comment I heard back from Scott when we were talking about Aurora, when they were talking their speed cameras for citations. The comment was made that some of these real high-speed vehicles may in reality be his deputies.
Right. I mean, I'm just talking traffic counts and we
Yeah.
can't give tickets from the signs, obviously, but
Yeah.
it's just data.
Yeah, and how many vehicles are going what speed? Well, average speeds.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a study that came out of Minnesota and I've got copies of it. I'd gladly forward it on to you.
Okay.
And one of the keys in there is trying to get the speed set right. They reduced the speed in some of the cities in Minnesota
Mhm.
and the traffic drove faster.
Nice.
Human nature is what we're dealing with.
Well, I got a problem with that. I think that legislation they got out on where they can ticket at 11, starts at 11 over. Well, if you got a speed limit of 20 or 25, you go on 11 over versus if you got a speed of 55, 11 over. The percentage thing, see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's quite significant if you got a speed limit of 20 or 25 and you're going 11 over versus the high end.
Clayton, I have to agree with what you're saying. And when we get into general comments, we can discuss a little bit because we had the fatal crash over the weekend. Yeah,
All right. So you're gonna look into that project with Scott and then maybe hit the Amish community up for some funding.
yeah, I've got the contacts for some of the bishops and I can try and.
That would be good. Like maybe we if we can get a conversation started and a seed planted.
And actually, when Ty always had worked out there quite a bit too, and that would have been a good place to start.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah,
get with Griffin. He's would have all those contacts though. And Teresa goes out and gives.
I kind of have the contacts too because Niall McMartin sends them to me.
That's good. Need to get Niall on my side. Now I need some contacts.
Niall and I have had our disagreements over the years and we've become good friends.
All right. So I think next up we have Buchanan.
I'll step back.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Brian.
I'll wait for public comments because.
Amazing.
Just gonna really kind of do a basic update and see if there's any information you need from me. And then I also have something for the county. So I've got everything wrote here, so you can refer back to it.
Okay, thank you.
But I'll go through it just real quick. One thing I didn't put in here. So we'll just start. We've worked a lot, tourism, being a big part of economic development. We've done a lot of work with the tourism department, bureau and getting things off helping with getting things off the ground, and the new tourism director is doing an amazing job. And I think she'll probably be coming here in the next few weeks and talking with you and kind of giving you an update on what she's been doing. So I can attest she's done a great job. She's done everything she's supposed to do and above. So it's good to see really making an impact on the county. Also, we did complete our housing needs assessment. We've gotten that information out. And we did this in cooperation with, we paid part of it. We received a USDA grant that paid for part of it. We also received a grant from Mid-American Energy and the City of Independence to assist with paying for that. That's something we do every 5 years. We have to do it to stay competitive in the housing market. It's used for grants, workforce housing development, many things. So, and it also proves that we do need housing here within the county and where it is. And it does justify trying to get those developers in to do some development. We continue with our Building Better Business in Buchanan, our workshops that we've done. We had 4 in the spring and we have 3 more coming up, one coming up in August 27th. This is just a great way the 3 organizations can collaborate and provide really quality workshops within the county that some places might not be able to afford to do on their own.
Into a couple of them.
Yeah, they're very good, aren't they? We
Yes,
have
they
are. In addition, we're continuing our leadership program. We've seen that grow every year. As of this year, so far, I think we have 18 applicants. The program starts on the 4th of September, and I fully see us most likely being over 20 applicants again. Last year, we had 21, year before it was 15, year before that, 12. So definitely it's been a good quality program for the county and our businesses and communities to be able to be part of. And we've seen not just emerging leaders or new leaders, we've seen existing leaders that have taken this workshop and the 6-week workshop and have gotten a lot out of it. So really anywhere in that cycle, it's a great opportunity. We also received from REC, we had an opportunity to use, it's called Resimplify. So what we do through Lois, it's called Lois Location, a location service. We have it on our website. It gets out there on a national level, any buildings or properties that we have available. Resimplify with what REC gave us, they go through and they try to call and make sure that everything is up to date. We try to add anything that might not be on there. So we've started to see a few additional things coming onto our list that may have been missed or may be listed in a different way. So that's been very helpful for us. We continue to work on childcare. Obviously, all the communities have done a lot of work. We've worked most recently with Independence. They completed their childcare survey. They completed an action plan and are working on that right now. Sean Bainbridge was supposed to be here. He had planned to be here, but something came up. So we will get him here so you guys can meet him. He is our new communications manager, and he's done a lot of work with rebranding. It's been since, I think, 2012 since anything has been done with our logo of any significance. And really, he's not just rebranding us, he's also getting the information out about Buchanan County, about our communities, about our businesses. He's really, if you saw, I think it was Thursday or Friday, he put up there about the flag that's going up on NSB on the wall there. Really great. He interviewed the guy doing it, who also did the Fairbank mural. So it's It's just really informative and he's finding those little tidbits of information and getting them out there. So he's been doing a great job for us. Of course, Cedar Valley Regional Partnership, we just completed a wage and benefits study with them. We continue to work, with the Live the Valley, trying to bring people into the region, for workforce development. Also, part of what we do is we go out and meet with site selectors. Those are the people that work with businesses that are looking to locate within communities. Buchanan County on its own, they don't know who we are when we go as a region. We are able to educate them on the entire area. And we've been seeing some good results from that. So we continue to do that, just making sure we're keeping our name in front of these site selectors. We are working, the labor shed study is on its way. And we are working forward with that. That I hope will be out this fall. And the labor shed study simply gives some detailed information, those people coming into the county working, those people going out of the county to go to work, and a lot of information that kind of goes with our wage and benefit survey too. Our wage and benefit surveys, the region, but it's really great information. We can continue to connect with business and industries in our communities. And one thing I didn't have on here that I'm going to be adding, we are working on, and I talked about this before, we're working on the community leadership program. We did apply for the Buchanan County Community Foundation for some additional funds for that. Unfortunately, we did not get that. So we're working on revamping. Our goal was to try to do the first one for free. Don't know if we'll be able to do that without that additional funds, but we'll see what we can come up with. We already have a schedule laid out. It's going to be the third. I have to look at the calendar. First one's January 21st. So each month after that, it'll be on Tuesday afternoons. And it will go throughout the county. We want to focus on several different things. One, that leadership aspect, be able to give some training with that leadership within the county. But almost more importantly is educating those people that participate, what there is within the county. How do you go about going on a city council? How do you go about, and what is it all about to do? So that's some of the updates, and any questions?
I first heard about that leadership program. It came from an ex-state senator, Katie Rainbow, had attended that. She thought it was a wonderful thing, and she's seen a lot of benefits to that. So she made positive comments about that. She might have been even on the very first one.
Mhm. Yeah, we went and participated in that last year. I'm wondering if we might go again this year just to get a refresh, and we hope to have, we kind of had a little bit of stop, but we're gonna get started on this and making sure we can, hopefully, we plan to kick it off in January.
I sent your lunch and learn invite out to all the department heads, and not just the department heads, but if they got anybody in their department that serves in the supervisory or leadership role, that this might be a good fit for them too. So I told them to reach out to you directly and get registered and stuff, and but kind of keep me informed where I know where that number is, falls at 8, not that we have to stop at that 8, but after that 8, then there'll be a cost, a minimal cost incorporated with that. So
I went to the one on AI. It was really interesting.
Yeah.
I have tried to use like the ones that when she showed us how to use the pictures.
Uh-huh.
And I have yet to, I tried to make a fire station with one and it was bad. It didn't come out quite right, but that's okay.
At least on the economic development topic. A year or so ago, there was an individual that approached the Independent City Council about using the Henderson property for that hemp
That's
processing
been, that has been, they have not
moved
moved
forward?
forward, yeah.
Okay.
That has been quite a while and there was a negotiation on the building, which ended up not going through.
Okay.
And they did not move forward, so,
But you keep hearing about that industry in the
yeah.
news, and I kept thinking, gosh, we were supposed to have something going on with that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You, are you up to date with all the developers out there? I mean, there's some areas like East Aquaski, a new area up there that was, I think it's third Frank edition out there. Now, there isn't another home going up in there. I see they dug for the base and stuff. Hazelton up there, that Puff, Jody Puff property and stuff. I mean, there's kind of scattered throughout the county. You have people reaching out to you, knowing where there's lots available for building on and stuff like that? And are you up to date with all of them that's in the county right now?
I'm up to date with, I think, a majority of them and some new things that are developing or trying to develop. And yeah, when we get reached out to, it's usually, rental. I do have on our website, we do have a list of the realtors and rental people who have rental property. It says up to date as a year ago, for people to be able to reach out and if they're looking to locate within the county. It's just not having a lot of availability still. I did want to present you with this. We continue to try to recognize those communities, the county, and then our businesses and industries that work with us towards bettering Buchanan County, and it's
Okay. We can take some of those old pictures down now.
I'm starting to roll.
I have been trying to do that for a long time.
Lisa, you wanna come back here? Let's
Yes.
get a photo with that. You can see if John can do some of that.
I'll take it and email it to John. I need some.
I can, that'd be great.
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
Actually, I'll do yours first, so that it
Okay.
goes off. I
Yeah.
don't have to bother you to get it started again.
Short ones in the middle, right?
There you go.
That's how it works.
Either that or in front.
1, 2, 3. Take a couple. Okay. Hold on, please.
Oops, sorry about that.
Okay, you're good, Gaten.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much.
Picture, they'll say, why was John sitting down?
Oh, here you go.
Oh, wrong one.
You can have mine.
I keep mine.
Wait, that's gonna cost me $1 for Lions Club.
What?
There's
Anytime you get a picture in the paper, it costs me $1.
Gotta do a push on, and this has already been budgeted and stuff like that. Do we need to make any kind of action here at all?
No, no.
Okay. Great, and, I know Mid-America Basement Representative is here, or we can, come on up,
Good to go.
really good to go. Yep.
Thanks for having me back, guys.
You bet.
Bet.
Glad you can make
Good to
it.
see you again.
I get to be here. Last time was, I think it was raining the last time I was here.
I believe it was.
Then again, it's been raining nonstop. Where would you like me at?
You have
Here?
that seat right there.
Perfect.
You bet.
I'm here to answer questions. Present anything you guys want me to show you? You name it.
Is this sump pump, system, I haven't had a chance to review it again. It's been a while since I looked at this.
Yep.
Does that, send an alarm report in or anything like that? Is there gonna be any kind of a sensor on there that, if it becomes flooded area or something like that?
Yep, it has a water alarm built into it. It's got Bluetooth capability as well. So I mean, you can go up to, I don't know how many phones or devices, but yeah, it'll send alerts, has alarm system, battery backup systems. The whole kit caboodle there.
Mhm.
as well as the water guard system itself. So that is, the water guard system is the gutter system for underneath the floor. That's what's collecting the water. That's the main thing, you know,
Mhm.
alleviating that hydrostatic pressure or water pressure. So, in your guys' situation, commercial, well, we're dealing with that a lot too, but you're gonna have thicker slabs, thicker walls, thicker foundations. So, yeah, definitely something we can take care of for you.
And you wanna explain a little bit more about how you're gonna plumb the sump system, how many pumps you're gonna have, and if any of them is battery backup,
Yep.
anything like that.
Yep, so with this guy, let me load this up real quick here. You still have copy, okay, so you
Yeah.
do have a copy. Actually, I've got a printer. I can always print out more for you and I can show you on my computer as well. Let's see. Have you guys still been having some issues down there with it?
Oh, it never goes away.
With all the rain?
I'm surprised we haven't had more issues, with all the rain and stuff, but,
So this,
redoing the parking lot and getting better sloping on that and
Yep.
put some curbing out there helped him.
Yep.
But it hasn't 100% stopped everything.
Okay.
so this does not mitigate the water that comes in on the inside of the walls.
It does, it's like coming down the walls itself. It depends on which part of the walls you're talking about too. So last time I was here, you had a system that was being installed that was supposed to help with that, I believe, through the walls or down the walls.
Yeah, yeah. Dehydrate, take the moisture out of the concrete and the walls.
Okay. This will, with our drain system, we're putting it under the floor, on top of the footing or the foundation, right along the foundation walls. It's got a built-in wall drain onto it, so if any water does come down the wall, it can catch that, but there's no, in your guys' case, like on the kind of, what would you call that little room underneath the parking lot area? There's a,
Air handler.
yeah, concrete ceiling essentially. So you're gonna have a cold joint there where concrete on concrete meet. So we can catch it, make sure it never hits the floor again. There's no truly stopping that. Moisture is a different story. Relative humidity is a different story. I've got a industrial dehumidifier in that proposal, which is gonna help with just moisture in the air, wall sweating, that type of deal, but nothing. If you had a ton of water, it's hard to explain, but if you had a ton of water coming in where the foundation wall and that cap meet, that joint here, if you had a parking lot that flooded or something, that's a whole different story there. Yeah, but we're gonna catch everything, moisture wise with the relative humidity on the dehumidifier, as well as that drain system with the built-in wall.
And the dehumidifier, would that drain to the sump?
Yep, right into it. It just automatically drains into it.
Now, I know they rate everything, domestic rated ones are rated by how many pints will be moved in a 24-hour period.
Correct.
What's the rating on this?
So this will be 100 pints. This is a 3,000 square foot rating though. So a lot of your box store dehumidifiers, it's all based off of 100 square foot ratings, so what can they do within a little 100 square foot section? This will do 100 pints a day, which is a ton of water for pulling out of the air. Yeah.
And it just hooks into
It just drops right into the sump pump. And that's gonna help the walls just sweating in general. Just concrete's a hard porous sponge, so it's going to always absorb moisture. But with the system that we have, and I can show you guys too, it's got that built-in wall drain into it. So we're alleviating the hydrostatic pressure or the water pressure around the whole area by installing a perimeter system. That being said, so that's gonna help alleviate a lot of that. If the water ever does come down the wall, it still has a way to get into our drain system. And then discharge wise, because you kind of have two levels of basements, right? So we're going to do a perimeter system in where the main HVAC area is. Drop that into the lower basement portion of that. With a drop down duct essentially. So just channels that run from under the floor down into the lower floor. And then that lower basement portion where a lot of the electric panels and different things are, That's where I want to put the sump pump because it's obviously the low point. And then we'll run 1.5-inch discharge lines, a couple of those back up and out towards the HVAC area, towards the, I guess it'd be the west side. I think that's kind of
It goes
how,
out the wet, out the boiler room area, it goes out through the wall on the northwest corner of the boiler room
Yeah.
area.
that's kind of the area that's best for us to.
And you'll tie it in with the existing stuff there in the air handler.
Yep, and that's all in here too.
There, your sump system again, how many pumps you gonna have in that?
3 pumps.
3 pumps.
There's 3
And what
pumps.
is gonna be battery or?
And then there's a battery backup. So you have actually, you have a third horse AC pump. You have a half horse that's a little bit higher as another backup pump. And then you'll have the third battery backup system on there. We call it the triple safe, 3 pumps with the battery backup. Bluetooth, so it'll alert you. It'll show you when it's running, how it's running. And then there's a built-in water alarm on it as well. So if the water gets too high, a pump fails, something like that, it'll have it on there. Also with that, you have a built-in floor drain onto the sump itself too. So it's airtight, not gonna let radon levels, things like that come in. But with the built-in floor drain, if you ever have a plumbing leak or something else, it's another little safety feature to have, especially in your electrical panel room.
Well, to me, it's just not about the water. We got infiltrating the deterioration we got going on with concrete and stuff like that. It's the moisture content. We got air on there.
Correct.
That's not good for any electrical system.
Correct.
If we can get that area dried out, because what we're gonna have to start, we're gonna have bad connections on the electrical termination
Sure.
points down there and everything else. That's gonna cause a major problem. So we need to get that moisture out of the air.
Yep, kind of a 2-part thing. We're gonna take care of the water, make sure no water ever hits the floor. That helps dry it out. But then with that, what we call a Santa dry, that's that industrial dehumidifier. So that'll do the 3,000 square foot, and that'll just tie right into our sump pump system.
So essentially, you're gonna put a lining all around it.
Yes, with this one as well. Yeah, so 98% of the basements that we do, residential or commercial, we're gonna have what we call clean space, which is a 20 mil thick swimming pool liner, essentially, that we kind of wrap the walls. By doing that, you're essentially encapsulating the walls, sealing them up some, kind of cutting them off from the outside world.
How do you keep mold from getting in there?
They're antimicrobial. So 2 things. One,
Okay, so how long are they antimicrobial? I mean,
it's a great question.
is that like a long,
That's where the Santa dry comes into play. Let's keep it dry. And that ambient air, if moisture, so mold needs 50% relative humidity and higher to grow. It needs organic material and it needs air. So we can't get rid of air. Organic material is gone because the clean space isn't made with that. There could be organic material on your true foundation walls, but then by putting in the Santa dry, that's going to keep that RH level, the relative humidity level, lower than 50%. Not many people ask that question, so I like when I get asked that question. How do you stop the mold?
well, because I mean, it's a thing. I mean,
Yeah.
you see it in basements and stuff like that. I show old houses sometimes and you see mold in corners and, once you're just a little bit and
Yeah.
give it a little wiggle room and it
Absolutely.
just likes to.
Because it's high relative humidity, it's unconditioned, right? So it's just sitting there, sitting there, and then mold loves it. Your finished walls, drywall, things like that, that's food for mold. Here, if you put an antimicrobial material on there and control the relative humidity, that's where we keep that from happening.
If the board would go ahead and approve
Mhm.
this proposal, plan, when is your company able to do it and how long are you looking at to complete it?
We're roughly 6 weeks out on average lead time. We have 20 different crews, 8 of them specialize 365 just in waterproofing. So that being said, 6 to 8 weeks, depending on how much rain we have, usually 6 weeks. This project here would be quickly, real fast here. 3-day project, somewhere in that range. Usually a 4 to 5 man crew comes in.
Yeah. They've got another professional company.
Mhm.
We've reached out to them, we're talking with them too. to make it more of an apples and apples, what you presented, yours was a lot more detailed. We asked them to do the more detail and add some things into their proposal
Sure.
that would bring it up and kind of make it more of an apples to apples to what you've got for us.
Yeah.
And there again, I mean, we're required because of our procurement policy to
Mhm.
reach out and it's just good business, that we need to do it. Wisely spend our tax dollars.
Absolutely.
This is something that we will not be making a decision on today.
Oh, yeah.
Until we find out what the other companies coming back with to make it more of an apples to apples type thing.
Mhm. Were they close within scope of work? I mean, you don't have to tell me anything as far as that goes.
They weren't close. They dropped the ball on some things that you had in yours, you know. I thought we was gonna get more from them than what we got, so we made them add it in and they're supposed to get back because that.
Okay,
I mean, I like,
They mostly concentrate on just a sump issue
okay.
and not some of the others.
Yeah.
And I don't think they included a dehumidification system or nothing like that.
and they're not, we're not gonna show them what you've done. That's
No,
up, that's,
Oh, yeah.
it's up for them to
No,
figure out.
No, we don't share this. I mean,
Yeah.
this is all about how we make things competitive.
Mhm. Absolutely. Yeah, and my main thing was, scope of work wise, so I can help you guys make a apples to apples decision too. So obviously I'm not gonna go any less than this as far as scope of work goes, because I feel like this is what you need, right? So I would never do that, because now you're not getting what you need, but
Right.
Yeah,
That's what we
absolutely.
do the project. We wanted to solve a problem.
Not just kick the can down the road.
Mm-hmm.
I do see that, you do say that have been here, the customer will complete the prep work. Proper GFCI dedicated electrical outlets for all sumps, and I'm assuming you would let us know where that would need.
Oh,
to
yeah,
go.
absolutely. Yeah. Yep, that's all easy stuff really, for the most part.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, as far as the needed electric power, that's a good area to
Oh, yeah.
pick it up any place down there that's needed.
The sources down there.
Some of the other areas, we got the courthouse, where are you gonna get the power source?
Right, yeah, and I do see, we would do the, one call also.
Yeah, we would take care of all that stuff.
Oh,
Yeah,
let's see, mark any private lines that may be hidden.
that's
Under-
private. So that's a generic phrasing in our proposals. That would be if I was at your house and you had a dog fence that
Oh, okay.
the low-key companies are gonna mark, or you ran a wire without pulling a permit to your shed that we might hit, things like that.
We don't have any dog fences.
Yeah, hopefully not down there anyways. Yep, so I mean, we would do all everything that needs done. I mean, whether it's, especially with residential side of things, a homeowner doesn't wanna have to worry about the permits, and we take care of everything,
Yeah.
obviously.
Wait, I've got a question. Whether we go with one company or other, that old phone panel board down there. How soon could we maybe get that out of there completely?
You guys are kind
We
of
have to
talking
work
about
with
that.
IT on that?
Yeah, I've been working with IT on that and it kind of was started out. The holdup is the change of the phone system that was coming into the clerk of courts and everything, which has now been completed. And we didn't know if there were some termination points on there that was feeding their old system and stuff. So we really hesitant about touching anything on there until we knew that, and Jason will probably have to bring in, Independence, Telecom or whatever, and we'll have to investigate all that. And it's just a matter of us, maybe going down there with some custodial help and IT help, maybe we can go down there and assist and get that stuff tore off that wall.
I think
Because
that-
anytime you got stuff sandwiched on the wall like that, you can get that off of there. That's gonna help the drying out of the concrete.
That's my point. I'd like to have that all done prior to one of these companies
Prior
starts
to.
in.
You guys had a IT guy, I believe, go down there when I was here the first time and talking about that. Yeah, ideally, that would be great if all that's gone, because now I can wrap those walls. Make sure those are good.
And it's gonna create a mess taking that off of there, and we don't need any of that getting down into the drain system. You know,
Well, maybe we should just go ahead and look into getting that done, like ASAP.
As a company, we prefer it's gone, because that's a whole lot less we gotta work around. We don't want to be messing with any of that stuff.
It's not needed and
well, I don't have anything further for you on this. Just stay in touch.
Yeah.
I guess if any of us review this further and got any questions, we can reach out to you and
I'm in the area all the time,
Great.
so I'm happy.
Do we have your card?
I believe so, but I can get you up plenty more. There you go. A few different ones too. There's some with my face on it. There you go. I
All right.
don't know if that hurts me or helps me.
It helps you.
Go with the proposal, that way I have it, if this is the decision you guys make.
Yeah, I'm happy to show anybody, anytime, anything. So I mean, I'm here often.
Appreciate it, Justin.
Absolutely.
I feel right now what I see here is it's pretty concise and it's take care of our issue, or even if we get it 90% of it, taking care of this problem, it's better than what we got. I mean, this has been on my mind for many years, this deterioration. We need to protect the integrity of our building.
This is a 100% deal. So everything we do is lifetime warranty of the structure. We're a family owned and operated company since 1990. We've done roughly 45,000 homes that we've worked on. But we're part of a national network of dealers. The reason I bring that up is because that's where we get the backing, 580 dealers across the US and Canada, the engineering, the patented products, those types of deals. When I propose something, it's 100%, not a 90% for me. So that's why when I leave, you guys are happy, you tell a whole bunch of people and I get a whole bunch more business. I appreciate you guys having me back out. Any other questions?
We'll reach out. Thank you very much for coming in.
Absolutely.
We'll let you know one way or the other.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys very much. Do you have an idea, ETA, on their response to you? Did they say?
But I'm gonna, if I don't hear something by the end of the week, I'm gonna reach out and say, hey,
Yeah.
Because,
They don't get hurt.
I
kind of feel like. they were prepared.
sometimes you're unhappy the way, especially government works, and procrastinating to make the time it takes to get from point A to point B on a project.
Yep. No, and we'll work with you guys too, as far as business hours, that type of deal. Like, do we need to come on the weekends, things like that. So we'll make sure you'll get it figured
On
out.
something like this, we're not disturbing any of the public or something. I mean,
Yeah,
you're
it's all
gonna,
downstairs.
yeah, it's all
Yep.
out of the view. I mean, it's not like we're gonna interrupt our normal flow of business here.
Absolutely. Good to go. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Call me if you need anything.
Thank you.
Hopefully it stays dry until then.
Yeah, well, I don't know. It was just another surprise rain last night. Almost got an inch in my place.
And same here, same at our place. Have a great day.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Justin. See you next.
Yep, you'll see next. We gotta do something because we have, endangered birds. And it is unsanitary and it's right next to the public health building. So
You didn't want to go on BB gun much?
no, I thought I might get arrested.
Fire and discharging a firearm in city limits?
Yes. I didn't think that was probably a good solution to the problem.
You got anybody in mind, Dawn, if you did any,
I,
checking, on anybody that could maybe, the thing about, the only way to take care of this is to make sure they don't have any way to perch up there.
yeah, we just probably need to enclose it with metal. I don't really, I have the name of a contractor. I don't know if that might do some metal.
Shortly after, excuse me, shortly after the primary, when we had the complaint regarding that, I know I have it, but I want to say there was a company out of Ankeny that I forwarded that email to you guys and to Rick and Chris. I'd have to do some research to see if I still have it. And also I did was Google them.
I could, there's a company that I know Brian's used, and we've used them on the senior center roof and stuff. They work with Ken. Now, whether they just go on the roof or they would do some internal. ceiling
Midwest
work with
Bird
Ken or not.
Control.
Huh?
Midwest Bird Control. I sent that email,
Oh, okay,
a link to their website on June 4th to you guys.
June 4th.
Yeah, I have no idea what the cost is, but basically that's all they do.
No,
Yeah, but I mean, I guess I was kind of,
And I could reach out to the Dutch brothers and see if they'd be interested in anything.
I think the thing you gotta remember, they gotta seal it really well in the corners and stuff,
Right.
not nesting up there or anything else either.
Cause any gap that they can crawl up in there, they're gonna crawl up in there.
Got them nesting underneath my stairs, yeah, drives me crazy.
Yeah.
No, pigeon droppings, lead away acid. Sneeze. They do look like they do
I think
Pigeons
between
and
the three of us,
crows.
They'll be able to come up with some.
seagulls,
Reach out.
sparrows, here we go.
Were they from Ankeny or am I just thinking that?
I'm on their, no, I'm looking on their website right now.
Is that where they were from?
I believe so. I thought it said
Okay.
Ankeny at the top.
Okay.
It's a 515 number, so that would be Ankeny.
You wanna reach out to them, Dawn, and I'll reach out to the
Yeah, cause I'm not sure what their
other tin company.
solution would be. But we most definitely can explore it. Yep, I can do that.
Would you like me to put this on the agenda for a couple weeks out or what's your guys' thought?
Yeah, 2 weeks out. That would be good.
I thought Rick had sent something about that. Emails, but
I got a contractor's name too from Rick and Chris. The cards and prints
that
in my
might
car,
be what I'm thinking about.
probably. Speed signs up.
Be nice if maybe we can get this done before the next voting cycle.
We need to, because that just looks very unsanitary when people walk through it. It's,
There are diseases you can get from it too. I remember from the asbestos inspector training and the bridge inspection
Yeah.
training.
histoplastomosis or something like that. I'm probably totally slaughtering it.
You're close. I was gonna Google it, but I was afraid I'd lose stuff on. Got my phone right now, but yeah, there's couple diseases.
I know one of the worst is, excessive bat droppings and stuff. Cause I know an individual in southern Iowa that remodeled a house. That had bats in it and stuff like that, and it was confirmed that his lung disease and what he got, he died from that. Getting in that bat manure, working, remodeling that whole house.
Do what?
I got sick cleaning ours when they did a roof. There's all these bat droppings and they didn't tell us that that our sheeting, it's an old house, so it had places where it could fall down through. And I went up there to clean, I got sick I was sick.
Ooh,
And he says, have you had bat droppings? And I said, well, I've been in the attic cleaning up the mess, and he said, that's what it was,
that's not good.
so.
And you can have almost a similar thing for the bird.
Well, are the birds getting in? Are they just getting in underneath?
I think they're just roosting. I think they're just roosting up
Roosting
there.
up there?
There's an open rafters or
Yeah, it has
rivers, that type of thing, and they're just perching up there and it's
Inside?
out on the
on
outside.
the outside.
Yeah,
Right.
it's just all open girders underneath there.
And of course, it's in front of the door.
The car dealership.
Termination of bats and stuff like that, I don't know.
This needs to be sealed up. is
Yeah,
what
this
it
one
needs.
is.
You need some kind of bird mitigation.
I know the dealership went out there, they had an artificial owl hanging there. They got too used to the owl.
We have them out at our shed too. Got our open bay down below.
I'll reach out to this bird control, then maybe they can have a,
And you mentioned the bats. That's a double-edged sword because there's two protected species in Iowa. So
their droppings aren't good, but what they do for the mosquito population is good.
Yeah.
Alright, so,
threatened and endangered species.
right, is there anything else on emergency operations center overhang?
No, I'll see if I can reach out to one or two people too.
Okay.
You wanna reach out to that
Yep.
one that Chris, said us?
Midwest Bird Control. Good. Okay, and then, do you wanna move forward to public comment? We have.
I know Brian stated he had something, if you guys want to discuss that, and then we can go back after we meet with Elizabeth in case anyone has any questions.
Sure, absolutely. Take it away, Brian.
Okay, well, the one I wanted to, two things I wanted to bring up. The first one was we had a fatal crash over the weekend.
Where was that at?
It was at 130th in Indiana, so it's basically straight south of our county shop on Indiana, west of Hazelton. And it's rural uncontrolled intersections. And the studies have shown that you can put stop signs up, but that doesn't have any significant impact. In other words, you can't fix the problem that way.
Well, it might stop somebody though.
Might, but the numbers show that it teaches other people to stop obeying stop signs. And matter of fact, in Europe, some European towns have removed stop signs and other traffic signals to make their streets safer and more efficient. And you would think people are gonna stop for stop signs. I've been here 31 years. In the past 20 years, I can document about 10 fatals at intersections with stop signs and 2 now at intersections without stop signs.
But if we have stop signs up there, then they can't come back on the county's committed unsafe practices.
No, then they can sue you for not having the stop signs if there's something wrong. If you don't put a sign up, they can't touch us. And then the other catch is, and I brought that too, it's in that manual, the warrants for when you're allowed to put them up are in the manual of uniform traffic control devices. And it says, the use of a stop sign on minor street approaches should be considered if engineering judgment indicates that a stop sign is always required. Because one or more of the following conditions exist. The vehicle traffic volumes on the through street or highway exceed 6,000 vehicles per day. There.
Right.
A restricted view exists that requires road users to stop in order to adequately observe conflicting through street, on street or highways, and or crash records indicate that 3 or more crashes that are susceptible to correction by the installation of a stop sign have been reported within a 12-month period, or that 5 or more such crashes have reported in a 2-year period. And we went through, Clayton remembers this well, because we went through kind of the same situation.
On Grant 150.
150.
Has anybody asked for a stop sign up here?
No.
Okay, let's not
but-
go there then.
That's right, but I want you guys to be aware that the MUTCD says when you put them up, well, what makes the MUTCD law? The state legislature says the DOT shall adopt standards for signs and they adopt.
But these are just standards. I mean, just like SUDA says standards.
We went through this, what, a year ago, where the farmers wanted us to pull the stop signs because they didn't want to have to stop for the stop signs and then get their equipment going again. And it does create more problems with the secondary road system because the chugging of the
Right.
trucks and tractors trying to get going again destroys the
Yeah.
surface.
Yeah,
So, I mean, do we have weeds growing up in the ditches? Were
yeah, that's corn well, I haven't been to this site. I wasn't notified until I read emails this morning and yesterday.
okay, but
morning,
let's just
I
make,
sent
let's make sure that we don't have any weeds that were
Yeah,
maybe
I'll-
blocking views.
I
and-
plan on running there after this meeting. I told my office that.
I think the press release from Buchanan County Sheriff's Department did mention this tall standing corn.
That's what the
And I
email.
think right now it's what,
Absolutely, yeah.
7 or 8 feet tall right now, so.
Yeah. And then the other thing that the email to me said, so both these fatals at uncontrolled intersections, the individual that was killed was not wearing their seatbelt.
And there probably wasn't, the right-hand rule was probably not being followed.
No. No, the other one was over at 120th, 140th Mason. And it was dusty, it had beans, it was clear sight pictures, but it was
Dusty.
dusk in the evening, it was dusty, she was following her daughter and plowed into the side of a grain truck.
People don't abide by that right-hand rule, but I ran into that recently down to Cedar Rapids. I had a person not follow that, and when he made a turn in front of me, not following the right-hand rule, I kind of gave him the look. I mean, I didn't
Yeah.
make a face at him, I just kind of gave him the look, and he swung around and gave me the bird. He was in the wrong.
But that human nature is what we're dealing with. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. There are no, when I Googled this, because in Europe, the cities are pulling them out. And, Paris has no stop signs, it says. In the city of Paris. But
Or not Paris.
Real.
and I'm not a believer in that one, Dawn. I think there's a time and a place for it. But the wholesale, just do every intersection in the county is,
Yeah, and this is not the first time. We've had other, since I've been on the board, there's been all kinds of requests for different intersections for more signs. Where do you start and where do you end?
my answer is the MUTCD tells us where to start and where to stop, and that's it. And I thought you guys would like to know too, that, hey, it isn't just that we feel that there should be one there, because that's not the answers. It's where does the book say to put it?
Thanks for the update.
Had one other, almost a question, and this came to me a little while ago. And that is, here I am getting ready to buy some road right away, and there's a standard form that we've used since before I got here, for, road acquisitions for right away.
Where are we buying right away at?
Pulaski Diagonal, we've talked about it before, and you said,
Doesn't
no
that
way do we condemn. Well, I think we're coming to agreements on one of them.
Well, don't we have to have, those agreements have to be run before the Board of Supervisors, I'm assuming.
Historically, they hadn't, but they hadn't gone through the county attorney's office either.
They need to go through the county attorney's office and the Board of Supervisors, because we need to make sure that we're doing it all right, otherwise we could get in trouble.
Yeah, and I've got to, see, in my case, I've got steps by the DOT that I have to follow too, or I don't get federal funds. So that was kind of my question to you, Don. It slows things down, but, yeah, we can do that.
We'll have to
We haven't
definitely
even had
make sure on that instance, we get all the signatures that are needed, because I understand that there's a trust existing, so we need to get all the people that's in the trust to sign off.
Yes, and visiting with him too, he's got authorization to sign all paperwork, and I said, can you provide me with that documentation? And you and I visited up.
Yeah,
a little bit
yeah,
too, Don.
because
Yeah.
just because he says he has it, doesn't mean that he has that. There has to be proper documentation, legal documentation, giving him the right to sign those.
That's right, yeah. Yeah, and that's where you and I had this discussion before too, and, yeah, I said, hey, I can go get it from your kids, or you can sign it and provide me with the documentation that's acceptable. And
And so if we're buying
I think it's a very worthy thing if we can get people to voluntarily move ahead with these people on this, because I've seen a lot of cars in the ditch on it.
we've got two spots. The other one is off of Jeffrey Kramer's. And it's 0.014 acres, so I can widen a box culvert and make it meet standards.
Yeah, and we haven't had that form looked at, reviewed by our county attorney either, so that probably needs to also happen.
This form's been here over 30 years.
For a fact that, every year when Gardner comes in and does our audit, then letters go out to the county attorney, like Ehlers and Cooney, any attorney that we may have had interaction with regarding any possible liabilities for the county
Mhm.
that could be coming up, could be coming down the road. That is one that's on Sean's letter every single year. So I would highly recommend that, yes, I don't know your process, you know what you need to do, that this goes before the county attorney.
Yep.
I have no real problems with that, just. As I was getting ready to start getting things typed up, I thought, this is the form we always use. Maybe I better run it by the county attorney's office, I guess.
Always a good thing.
Yep,
Another
and-
safety step.
Yep, and whenever we're gonna, take land, and we probably need to have a Board of Supervisors involved in that also. Where the money's gonna come from?
If you look in my road budget, there's a category in there for right-of-way acquisition. So it's budgeted in secondary roads budget.
All right, anything else? Anybody else have anything for the good of the cause? At this point in time? Can take a 15-minute break until Elizabeth gets here.
Hope you didn't come over here to get cooled off, Gina.
Yeah, to go in her office.
Worse,
Well, I imagine she for sure in the afternoon, when that sun starts beating on those west winds.
keep your blinds down.
Believe me,
There's
No,
not.
because it worked for, because I went out during fair weekend.
Yeah, does that mean you automatically have to raise the speed limit?
I've been,
Been halfway cool till it's supposed to get hot again.
Alright, so
I've been using the electrical product.
do we need a motion for a 15-minute recess?
From-
It's been, yeah. John, can you make a motion for a 15-minute
I make a
recess?
motion, we take a 15-minute recess and reconvene at 10:30.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yes. You know, most, they are moving the speed limits around.
Steve,
I'll make a motion to reconvene.
You're ready.
first,
The absolute earliest was gonna be 10:30, so I've been in the
oh,
auditor's
here, gentlemen,
office.
all in
Never.
favor?
I didn't know that, or I would have got you.
John is like,
Sorry.
I said all in favor.
Aye.
It's like herding chickens. All right, Catherine.
We're ready here. Are you ready? I'm gonna.
Back.
5 minutes, she's gonna tell us we're all passed with an A, good to go.
All right. You want to come up here and sit in case they have questions, or you want us to be behind Elizabeth?
Oh, I'm fine right here.
Elizabeth, it would be easier. You can sit right up here where you'd have something to lay your materials on.
Up close and personal.
Yeah.
All right, well, does anybody have any questions, or should we just go through, give the overview, and we'll hit the questions at the end? Okay.
Hit the question.
All right, so the first place we're gonna stop then is page 2, and that's the independent auditor's report. It's on Gardner and Company letterhead. And again, just a refresher, the purpose of an audit is to opine on whether or not the financial statements are fairly presented. The audit has nothing to do with finding fraud or errors or irregularities. It's not designed to do that. It's designed to opine on whether or not the financial statements are fairly presented. We don't look at every single transaction that goes through the county during the fiscal year. It's based on testing samples. And then we opine based on the results of our test. So this letter just kind of goes ahead and explains that. It also gives the opinion on the financial statements. And for the fiscal year ended June 30 of 2023, we have issued an unmodified opinion, which is what you want to hear. That means it is a clean opinion, and we believe that the financial statements are fairly presented. Now, during the course of audit field work, we did have some material misstatements. So there were proposed adjusting journal entries that were made. So all the transactions were properly included in the financial statements. So, and we'll talk about those later when we get to the findings piece of this. So things that were new for fiscal 23, we did have to implement Governmental Accounting Standards Board Statement number 96, which is in regards to subscription-based information technology arrangements. You did have to adopt a policy to put in place. There were no arrangements during this fiscal year that met the reporting threshold, so we didn't have to do any extra additional work or financial reporting to comply with that requirement. So this letter also talks about the responsibilities of management for the financial statements. These are your financial statements. You get to take responsibility for them. This letter on page 3 also outlines what our responsibilities as the auditor are for these financial statements. So we exercise professional judgment and maintain professional skepticism. We're assessing the risk of material misstatements of the financial statements. We have an internal control questionnaire that we have some of the elected officials and department heads filled out, so that we get a feel of the internal controls that are in place for the county. We also look at the appropriateness of the accounting policies and whether or not they're reasonable. And then also we do look at events to see if there are conditions or events that might raise concern about the county's ability to continue as a going concern. So we look at some fund balances and that type of thing towards the end of the year. Okay, so then we can go ahead and skip to page 6, which is management's discussion and analysis. And this go ahead and introduces this annual report. It talks about how the county did implement GASB number 96. It talks about how Senate File 619 eliminated the mental health fund. So that is gone, that is done. You won't see any of that reported in these, which, is a big change from prior years. It also goes ahead and gives some financial highlights, talks about the revenues and expenditures of the county based on the audit and compared to the prior year. It also talks about using this particular annual report and what's included in it. The county does present 3 different sets of financial statements. They present a full accrual set, which is most like what you would see in the private sector, which is including all of your capital assets and all of your long-term liabilities. The county also presents a modified accrual, which is a mirror of what Chris has to report to the Department of Management, called the gap report. And then because the county budgets on the cash basis, we also do a budget to actual cash comparison as part of this report.
Elizabeth, is it all right if there's any questions that show up while we're going to
Yep.
this, to ask them, okay? On page 6, underneath the 2023 financial highlights,
Yep.
the last entry in there the net position.
Mm-hmm.
Could you explain that a little bit more in detail, how that come about and what created that and everything?
What is the increase is?
Yeah.
Okay, well, if you actually want to jump back to Exhibit B, which is on page 16,
16?
yep. And this is we're talking full accrual here, so this is all of, capital assets, all the liabilities, everything.
So this includes all of our buildings.
This is everything, yeah, everything that is above the reporting threshold that's established in your capitalization policy. Okay, so if you're looking at page 16, there's a column entitled Capital Grants, Contributions, and Restricted Interest. And in that column, there's an amount of $2,064,358. That amount is the amount that went through the farm to market account down at the Department of Transportation for your infrastructure. So anything that goes through, secondary roads, bridges, culverts, that type of thing, that is considered a grant to the county. So you're reporting that infrastructure and you're also reporting that as a revenue from the DOT. So that, makes up almost half of that dollar amount. So, almost half of that $5 million increase is
Grant.
what had gone through your farm to market.
Okay.
The rest of it is just, based on what your revenues and expenditures are. And again, this is accrual, so you can't refer it back to your budget. It doesn't, budget is cash. This is full accrual. So it's just the difference of, the revenues were greater than what you expended during the year. And that's what makes up that balance.
Which is a good position.
Yep. It is, especially moving forward with all the fun you've been having with budgets, I'm sure, with the House File 718 and
air conditioners that need fixed.
yes. So does that answer your question?
Yes, well, thank
Okay.
you very much.
Yep. Okay, so the remainder of this management discussion and analysis then again just explains that there's 3 different sets of financials. It also talks about, the different kinds of funds that the county is presenting. There's also some comparative information comparing fiscal 23 for fiscal 22. On page 9, we have that comparison of the balance sheet, and on page 10, we have the changes in net position. And you can go ahead and compare. The management discussion and analysis also gives the county a chance to talk about the budget and what happened during fiscal 23, and that's on page 11. And then also it gives the county a chance to talk about what's going on as you move forward into fiscal 24, and that's on page 13 under economic factors and next year's budgets and rates. So then the actual financial statements then start on page 14. And like I said, there are 3 sets. We start with the full accrual, and that is Exhibit A and Exhibit B. So Exhibit
That's on
A,
Page 60.
page 14 is the statement of net position, and then page 16 is your statement of activities. So page 14 with the statement of net position, that is most like the balance sheet that you would see in the private sector. So this does include all of the county's capital assets and long-term liabilities. We also show unearned revenues, which is the amount of the American Rescue Plan Act funding that you have not spent as of June 30.
That spent.
Pardon?
So we need to get that spent.
Yes. And again, this is of June 30 of 2023. So I'm sure you guys had expenditures in fiscal 24, so that balance is just down. Yeah. Other things that are new for this year, we do show an opioid settlement amount on Exhibit A, and that is something that's new for fiscal 23. With the settlements, the state auditor's office provided the information for each of the counties that are going to be receiving these funds over the next 17 years to be presented on the financial statement. So that is new this year as well. So again, Exhibit A would be your balance sheet.
Can I
Exhibit.
stop you for a second? Gina, do you want to come up here and sit?
I can, yeah.
Yeah, why don't you come on up here? Because you're
It's
part
getting
of.
hot back here. I'm dying.
That's why I went and refilled my ice water.
I brought my coffee too. I don't have all the windows open.
That one's stuck shut.
Oh. That would be why.
Just look on the bright side of it. You're not in the hay mound stocking hay.
Oh, that was a torture today.
Feeding into this moment.
I've done that a time or 2.
Okay, so then Exhibit B again would be your income statement, again, including all of those accrual items. Exhibit C then and Exhibit E, these are the modified accrual financial statement. So we do present a balance sheet and a statement of changes. This does mirror what is presented to Department of Management as the gap report in the fall. So it does not include the capital assets. It does not include your long-term liabilities. It does have a 60-day accrual period then. And again, we present the general fund separately, rural services, secondary roads, and debt service. Those all calculate as major funds because that is, they meet a certain percentage requirement and that is required to be presented separately in the front. And then the smaller governmental funds are aggregated and presented as non-major for Exhibit C and E, but then they are presented in detail in the back of this report as Schedule 1 and Schedule 2. So you can see the information for those smaller funds. Now, Exhibit D and Exhibit F then, they go ahead and they walk you through the changes and how you get from the modified accrual to the full accrual. So you can just go ahead and step right through that and it shows you how to get from one to the other. Okay, so then Exhibit G, H, and I are for your proprietary fund, which is your health insurance fund. Health insurance continues to be very difficult for our counties to budget for and to be able to provide quality health insurance and be affordable. Buchanan County is showing net income of $345,000 for this fiscal year. So, that's very positive. So
Page you on that.
good things there. It's page 27, yes. Page 27 shows that net income. And then the cash flows for that are on page 28. So you can see, the cash that was going in and coming out. Then Exhibit J and Exhibit K on pages 29 and 30. These are the financial statements for your custodial funds. So these are the funds for which the county acts as a fiduciary agent. So this is your schools, your townships, your cities, the assessor, 911, emergency management. So Exhibit J presents the snapshot of the balance sheet. Exhibit K presents the snapshot of the ins and outs. These again are detailed in the back of this audit report as Schedules 3 and Schedules 4. So you'll be able to see all the detail for the funds specifically there.
Does that also have anything to do with public health being a physical agent for the regions?
No, public health is in your governmental funds, so that's included in their general funds. Yeah. So even though you're the agent, that grant, your public health fund is included in your governmental funds because you budget for those and those are budgetary expenditures, so. Okay, so then we get to the notes to the financial statements and those start on page 31. And I'm gonna skip through most of them just because there haven't been any big changes from prior years. It describes the reporting entity. There's a lot of accounting definitions and terminology included in this. The amortization schedules for your debt are included in this. It talks about ICAP, your health insurance. Also, there are several pages of actuarial information. The county is required to present a pension liability and also an OPEB liability. So the IPERS actuaries calculate each participating employer's portion of that liability, and you're required to record it on your financial statement. So when the actuaries do that, they give us about 5 or 6 pages of required information that needs to be presented. And so that's presented in note 7. So if you're ever looking for a sleep aid, I would recommend reading note 7, starts on page 47.
Is that
Not even
something-
10:30.
Anything coming into play? I don't know, but I could do it. So the solvency of the IPers is like 85, 87%. So that remaining amount, whatever it be, 13 or 15%, that is divided out between
Yep.
county, cities, schools.
Yep, the actuaries for IPERS actually come in and we don't have to do anything with that. The actuaries for IPERS come in and they perform their report and their calculations. And if you look on page 62, that actually shows the percentage, their net position. For fiscal 22, they were actually showing pension assets for all of the participating employers because they were funded at 100.81%. So everybody showed an asset. Now this year for fiscal 23, they're showing 91.4% funded. So we're back to that liability status. And then they go ahead and, like I said, the actuaries calculate out that amount and then the state auditor's office gets involved and they helped to divide it up between the participating employers, and they tell us how much your portion of that would be. It's divided between regular sheriff and protection occupation, because you have three different classes of employees here at Buchanan County. And they provide all that information, along with the 5 pages of actuarial information.
So in essence, that means that the potential liability there.
Doubtful, because it's 91%
Right.
funded, but
That's one of the best in
possible.
the nation.
It is. And last year, like I said, they showed an asset, so they were in great standings for last fiscal year. So, and again, 91% is still up from where it has been the last 10 years, so.
I'm gonna say historically.
Yeah.
The eighties.
Yeah.
Big difference.
Okay, so, we do have a note on page 58, again, that talks about the accounting change. So again, we implemented GASB statement number 96. Again, it did not have any impact for Buchanan County's financial statements for this fiscal year. So then on page 59, we show the budgetary comparison schedule of receipts, disbursements, and changes in balances. So here we present the actual cash in and cash out for all of your governmental funds. And that is shown in that actual column. The column that is less funds not required to be budgeted, that's your drainage. So your drainage did not have any activity last fiscal year, so we didn't need to do anything or worry about that. And that gets us to the net cash in and cash out during the fiscal year. And then we present the amount that was budgeted. Now, the county did not have any budget amendments during fiscal 23, so we just have the budgeted amount. Normally we would have an original and a final. And then we look at that and compare the actual budgeted to the actual amount that was spent and show the variances. So a couple of those variances are significant. The one for the intergovernmental, grants are hard to predict. You might think you're going to get it, but because of the state reimbursement policies, it's a timing thing. Also, some of the grants are funded or not. You think you're going to get them, but you don't. So even though that variance was significant, it was explained. Same way with roads and
So-
transportation.
Would it be better if we just don't, we don't?
The budget is the best, the budget is your best guess. And
Right.
with the information that you have. And so if during the year there are significant things that are changing, like interest is a great example, because last year, you earned so much.
Oh, yeah.
And, you might not have expected that back in March when you did your budget. And then all of a sudden you're receiving all this interest. So, if there's a significant change in expectation, it's totally reasonable that you would want to do a budget amendment to reevaluate that. Now, normally it's expenditure driven, because the code requires that you can't overexpend. But while you're looking at those revenues, while you're looking at those expenditures and determining if you need to amend or not, also be looking at the revenues, because like I said, nobody could have guessed that interest was going to be what it was last year. So,
You did a very good job. You mentioned those accounts.
yeah. So, the budget is your best guess. So like I said, it's expenditure driven because the code says you can't be over by expenditure, but also be looking at those revenues. So, if there is a change in expectation, or if, public health is getting more grants than what they thought, or they're not getting the grants that they thought, or, if secondary road has a bridge that's going to have a reimbursement, and, things change throughout the year. So that budget amendment is a fluid document that can be, updated. I've got some counties that they do 5 budget amendments every year. I've got some counties that do 1. There's no right or wrong answer. It's whatever you feel comfortable with, but it
And
should.
truly, if you think of a budget amendment, you think expenditure.
You
You
do.
know, I'll admit
Yep.
that when I took office, budget amendment, we overspent.
Mhm.
But I need to definitely get better looking at the revenue side, which is a good thing,
Right.
but it's still just those steps that needs to be completed.
It is. And then also, we've had counties and, in our discussions with colleagues in the state auditor's office, that the public is really involved in budgets right now because of House File 718. So I know there were several counties that had people that were participating in those public hearings, and like, okay, you're increasing our budget expenditures by 500,000 and you're increasing revenues by 20,000. Where's because eventually, if you continue to do that, the fund balance is going to get eaten up and you're not going to have any fund balance left. So, we've been encouraging counties to not only look at that expenditure, just because you get in trouble and get, or there's a finding if you are overexpended, you know, you need to be looking at those, that revenue side as well.
Now, we have a constituent, a taxpayer, resident, say, what is, I want to know that what you call your budgeted dollars for the year.
Mhm.
Your exact budgeted dollar. What do I give them? I mean, I'm not an accountant. Do I give them the receipt? Or do
Yep.
I give them the disbursement?
You can
Which one do I tell?
It depends on what they're asking. If they want to know total tax collected, you get that right off, or what is expected to be collected, you get that right off your budget document, because that is what you're saying you're going to levy. That's what you expect to collect if everybody pays their taxes and pays their taxes on time. That's the expected amount that you're supposed to.
But this like on page 59, yeah, this is the accurate ending, what is what?
This is the cash. Yep, cash in, cash out, cash budget. So the cash budget projected that you were gonna have a $6.6 million balance at the end of the year. You know, they projected that you're gonna take in the 10,696,643, and now that's property and other county tax, so that's gonna be your local option sales tax in there as well. You know, this is probably not the best document to show your taxpayer, because this is the financial reporting side of it. You know, it has the information on there, but again, we've got it aggregated down to meet our financial reporting requirements. The actual budget document's gonna be able to break out how much of that is actually property tax, how much of that is actually credits, how much of that is actually local option sales tax, and that type of thing, whereas we kind of have those categories lumped together for financial statement reporting purposes. But yeah, you know, if they're asking that now, you know, hopefully your budgeted expenditures are less than what you have for, you know, revenues. So hopefully you're adding a little bit of fund balance to that every year.
Mhm.
But again, you know, you had projected a $6.6 million cash balance at the end of the year, and you ended up with a 14.2 million.
Your fund balance, where can you allow to use that fund balance dollars?
If it carries
Is it
over.
just through amendments that you can use it, or what?
It depends on how your budget, as you're going through the budget process, you know, when Chris is putting out those preliminary, you know, when you're trying to figure out what you're gonna do for expenditures, what you're gonna do for levy, what you're gonna do at that point, you know, this is an aggregate, so this is all your funds together. So, you know, some of these dollars are general, some of these are rural services, some of this is secondary roads. So, you know, there's different things you can do with different fund balances, but at budget time, that's the time to be going through and determining which expenditures you're gonna levy for and which expenditures you might be using fund balance for.
So now, it's county conservation and public health included in this also?
Mhm. Yep, they're budgeted for under the county umbrella, so this is all of your budgeted county governmental funds.
Did you see an increase in the sales tax, or where did that?
Local option sales tax. Yep, I think that's broken out separately in Schedule 5. Yep, and it actually was down for fiscal 23. It's on page 78. Yeah, 78 shows the expenditures of revenues by source and expenditures by function for the last 10 years. And so that breaks out your revenue and expenditure category, so you can see what the trends have been for the last 10 years. So, you know, this year it was about $65,000 less than what it had been last year. But local option sales tax is hard because it's nothing you don't have control over. You don't know how much you're gonna get every year. You've got a good idea, but you know, you're not gonna be able to totally pinpoint that.
Well, it helped a lot in reflections when that was changed, where in a lot of the voluntary, I think they were forced to, the guys mail order things and stuff that were coming in. They had to start charging sales tax on.
Yeah. Any other questions on the budget stuff from page 59 then? Okay, so then the pages that follow that are some required supplementary information about the budget and how to get from, again, cash basis to modified accrual. Some other required disclosures. Following that are several pages of required supplementary information for the IPERS net pension liability. If we've got a couple of schedules that show the county's proportionate share, we've got a schedule that shows the county's contributions for the last 10 years. And then some more actuarial information that's included on page 66. Same with page 67 and 68, you have your other post-employment benefits. Again, that's actuary driven. The actuary calculates what the county's liability is and provides that information. So we just had to start that 6 years ago. So this is the 6 year of reporting that. So that's why that schedule isn't the whole 10 year.
So basically get that, and only because over the last year and a half, we figured out how to do this because it was something Karen always did. Well, what we have to do is take all of our employees and figure out what they have on the books for vacation time, any sick time, comp time, anything that we would pay out if they resigned, if they retired. And that total amount is basically like a liability to the county. And then we give those reports to Elizabeth and her staff, and that's how she breaks this down. Basically what we're, almost like the employee savings account with their benefits that they have on the books that we could possibly be liable for to pay out if they left employment.
So that fourth line up from the top or from the bottom is the total liability by year.
What page are you on?
67.
67. 67 is other post-employment benefits. So this is actually the health insurance that you offer to people that have retired as well.
Okay.
So, again, they provide all the information and this goes to the actuary who is you guys are not Bob Hobson anymore, right? You are Bob Hobson.
Yes.
Bob Hobson is the actuary that goes ahead and he takes all that information that Chris was just talking about with all your compensated absences, all your payroll. He looks at, the birthdays of your employees. So, he determines age and he does his magic. And then he comes up with, your other post-employment benefits. So because you continue to offer health insurance to employees after they've retired, before they hit 65, and they pay the same rate that you do as employees, it creates an implicit rate subsidy. And so because you're offering that benefit, that's what triggers this disclosure and this reporting. So because you offer that benefit, you have to go ahead and jump through the hoops to present this as a liability. So again, Bob takes all of that information that Chris just listed off, along with the list of employees, who was hired, who was terminated during the year, what kind of policies they have, if it's family, if it's, single spouse. And then he goes ahead and calculates this dollar amount. And for this fiscal year, he calculated your OPEB liability at 465,000. And again, there's a note on that also, with the actuarial information back up in the notes. I think it's note number 8, I want to say. It is. It starts on page 51. And again, Bob provides all that information. He describes what the plan is. He describes what the benefit is. And how that implicit rate subsidy triggers that liability. And then again, he's got all of the rates that he used to calculate those dollars. He gives the mortality, he talks about the mortality table that he uses. He just discloses, the rates that he used for the healthcare trend, the discount rate, all the rates that went into calculating this particular liability. So he goes ahead and discloses all of that in note 8. So.
I know it's gonna be a very, this question I'm gonna ask, I know it's the largest part of our budget when we total it all together. Is there any comparison out there? Our wages and salaries that the county pays out in the compensation packages that are cost the county. Is there anything that shows what percentage of our county budget is going just for that?
No. Not for the financial reporting that we're presenting here. Now, you can calculate that pretty easily. Chris can pull those reports because you can pull a report that shows what the salaries are, what the benefits that the county is actually paying. So their portion of the IPERS, their portion of the FICA, it'd be pretty easy to pull those reports and get that number.
Yeah, I would just think that would be prudent, good information to know when, if you wanted to compare with other counties.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of a hard comparison to make
Well,
because
It is,
Well, we're
you don't know
just
how
the
many,
county
the size of the county and the number of employees. And I mean, we have some offices that we work with where the auditor's office has 2 people in it. And, it's hard. You'd have to find the county that is the same size.
Comparable, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And, you have a significant law enforcement facility too. So you've got an increased number of dispatchers, jailers, not all counties have that either. So,
Mhm.
and you also have public health. Not all counties
It'd
have
be,
that.
like Delaware County, they operate out of the hospital. Public health
Yeah.
Stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
it's hard, it'd be very hard to get apples to apples on that.
Mhm. Yep, it would be because so many different, there's 99 counties and they all do it in a different way, they've got a different configuration. Whether they're smaller county, larger county, whether they have public health, or if they, like you said, use the hospital, to facilitate that. It's just hard to find a good comparison. It's your same size that has a reasonably, similar staff.
Just off a cup question.
Okay. Okay, so then on page 70, we have the smaller, non-major governmental funds. So these are the funds that are aggregated and presented as non-major in the front of the book. This is their chance to shine, so you can see the detail. Schedule 1 and Schedule 2 are your governmental funds. Schedule 3 and Schedule 4 are your custodial funds. And then we already spent a little time with Schedule 5. That's the schedule of revenues by source and expenditures by function for the last 10 years. So then that gets us to another sheet of Gardner and Company letterhead on page 80. And this is the independent auditor's report on internal control over financial reporting and compliance and other matters. So in addition to opining on whether or not the financial statements are fairly presented, we also do some internal control testing and also some compliance testing. So the state auditor's office provides us with a compliance guide every year. There are things that they want us to look at every year. There are some things that we look at every 2 or 3 years. There's some things we look at every 5 years. There's some things they throw in just for fun, I think, to mix it up a little bit. So we're not looking at everything every year. Again, this is based on tests and samples. We don't look at every single transaction that might have impacted a finding. If there's something you do once a month and we pick that 1 month you messed it up, it creates a finding. You might have done it right all 11 times, 11 other times, but if we pick that one time to test for the finding and it's not right, then that will trigger a finding. So, again, this letter just goes ahead and talks about that, lays it out, and then it leads us into the schedule of findings. So the schedule of findings starts on page 82. The first one we have is segregation of duties. It's an old friend. It's in every single audit report that we issue, just because local municipalities don't have enough people on staff to totally segregate duties. So the county is doing what they can to keep the record keeping and the custody of the cash as separate as possible. But it is possible that one person would be involved in a transaction from its inception to its completion. So, people go on vacation, sometimes you're down to minimal office staff. It happens. So we do ask that several of the department heads and elected officials fill out an internal control questionnaire every year, and it kind of, by doing that, gives them some pointers on how they can segregate things as much as possible. So with the supervisors being involved in the claims process, that helps also. I hope that you're taking the time to look through claims. It might seem silly, but we actually have had 2 instances of fraud that have happened in the last 6 months that would have been caught if the supervisors were looking at the claims instead of a list. So if you're doing that, great. If you're not looking at the individual claims, I strongly encourage you to do it because, like I said, we've had 2 instances that I've heard of in the last 6 months where
That's the basket that Ann has in on her desk and everything's in alphabetical order of what's paid.
yeah,
So, and that is available anytime you guys want it.
yeah. So like I said,
I've called and questioned different things and I go in there and then, they pulled the receipt, the invoice and stuff. And then if I got any further questions, I call the department head on it.
yep, and I would encourage you, if you're not looking at all the claims individually now, I would encourage you to at least look at credit card ones and employee reimbursements, because like I said, between me and my colleagues and, it's not here. It's not, I'll stress that it's not here, but we've heard of 2 instances in the last 6 months where there were employee reimbursements either directly to the employee for travel expenses or through a credit card. That there were questionable things that were being reimbursed
Mhm.
and the supervisors were not looking through those claims. So they were just looking at a list. And so, like I said, I just encourage you to at least look at the credit card ones and the employee reimbursements, because like I said, that's what's fresh, that's what we've seen in the last 6 months.
Yeah,
So,
with our visa, we do go through those with a fine tooth comb, and I have upset employees before for rejecting, they didn't have their itemized list on a receipt. It's 9 times out of 10, you can call the restaurant, they're gonna get you what is needed. Sales tax, that's a big one that gets slipped up when they purchase something. And, we've had the same thing with employee reimbursements on different items. If I had my way, we would only have credit cards allowed for travel. For any like overnight stays or meals, everything else I would like to shut down. The problem is a lot of the companies, even like some of these permits Brian has to do,
mhm.
that's our only option.
Right.
And the other bad thing is that the county, unless something has changed recently, but municipalities can't have credit cards, people have to have credit cards. So it makes it hard with the tax exemption.
Mhm.
Because a person can't be, but the entity is tax exempt.
So, and that's nice that we are able to have the credit cards.
Yeah.
We can get those tax exemptions.
I questioned sales tax charge here a while back, my card stuff, and that was at a hotel.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
And so I questioned, I said, how do you get, I said, this is wrong, you can't be charging this sales tax. They said, oh, yes, we can.
Yep, they are the exempt.
They're exempt.
Yep.
And it's just crazy that they are.
Okay, so then the next finding that we have then is in regards to financial reporting. During the course of the audit, we had material amounts of receipts, accounts receivable, accounts payable, operating transfers, capital asset, infrastructure and construction and process additions, along with deferred inflows that hadn't been properly recorded in the county's financial statement. So we did find these during the course of field work and were able to provide proposed adjustments. Now, with the accounts receivable and the deferred inflows of receivables, that was triggered by the opioid settlement. And again, the state auditor's office made that information available. They put it out on their website. We went ahead and came up with a spreadsheet to track that, because again, it's gonna be collected over 17 years, and there's gonna be additional settlements. In our training with the state auditor's office, they told us, I think, that CVS, Walgreens, and Walmart have settled now too, so they would be providing that information. So I don't know if ISAC has pushed anything out to you guys or made it available, but
Last thing I got was from the county attorney.
okay, they might have pushed it to the county attorneys too.
Mhm.
I'm not sure. I just know that last year they had pushed it through the state auditor's office and had posted all of the amounts that each of the counties were gonna be receiving. So, you just need to have a spreadsheet to track that, because it is a significant dollar amount. It is material dollar amount. So if you're not able to say, here's what we have left to collect, it's, have your note receivables with secondary roads and being able to track those.
On the
You have,
opioid thing, weren't there several companies that were out in advance of their payments?
Well, yeah, some
Yes.
paid in advance. There's been some bankruptcy things. It's just a continuing thing that's happening.
Yeah, it's
What's
evolving.
happened, what's going on right now is gonna change next month.
It is. And that's why I'm hoping that ISAC and the state auditor's office is presenting that information.
Yeah,
And you're getting your annual installment. So, if you're able to track that, the information is out there for last year as far as what was supposed to be collected, and then you can compare that. And we do have a spreadsheet if you want me to send that to you. I can send you what we started for the audit.
Why don't you?
And then if you just want to go ahead and track what was collected, and then if you have that available to us when we come for the audit.
Yep. I do know the last time I got an update, I went and I looked at what the state says we should have by this time compared to what we have, and that
Mhm.
was correct, so.
Okay. Yeah,
I
yeah.
think, isn't Griffin Public Health keeping up with that too, aren't they?
They
All the
do,
funds come to me first. So,
they ISAC, does do webinars and stuff, and
Mhm.
even NACO does.
Yep, it's a national thing. So, if you have that spreadsheet in place, though, that will resolve the finding with this. So if you're able to just say, yep,
there you go.
this is what we're supposed to get, this is what we've gotten so far, this is what we've got left to collect, then that resolves that piece of the finding. So the other part with the receipts, making sure that the other departments are coding everything correctly. The chart accounts gets updated through the ISAC on the ISAC website pretty much annually at this point. We've had a new one each, you know, and as new grants are made available, like with the COVID dollars and, you know, the public health is forever evolving with that. But they update the chart of accounts, and so they're expected to use those numbers so that those numbers are reported accurately. So just making sure that all the departments are using that chart of accounts and getting, if they need a new number set up, you know what number it's supposed to be, because
They
again,
come through my office.
yeah, Department of
Not
Management.
saying I
and-
do it perfect every time, but at least
Yeah,
we
So-
talk it out to get the correct.
Yeah.
things.
Now, so did the department heads just, get it off of the ISAC website and then forward it onto Chris and say, this is what I found on the ISAC
Mhm.
website, is
Mhm.
this the correct one?
the ISAC
would you
website
like
has
to do
the uniform chart of accounts.
Right,
Now again, it's not county specific. It just kind of gives you a general, and not all counties follow it exactly, which
Correct.
makes it difficult. But it gives you a general idea. So, you know, if it's supposed to go to like like with the opioid, when they set that up. You know, they said they wanted it to be Fund 30. Well. If
I had already
30s are,
used Fund
yeah,
30.
so then you have to make an adjustment.
Mhm.
But you know, there's other options, or, you know, depending, you guys are on Tyler.
Elizabeth doesn't like Tyler.
I have issues with Tyler. When you can't balance,
Either.
most of the days, most of the days.
when you can't balance at the end of the day, and yeah, but anyway, like, the other software solutions, they have a different chain of numbers.
Yes.
So theirs is 30,000, whereas Tyler is Fund 30,
Yep.
so. But yeah, that chart of accounts, like I said, whenever there's a big, with the opioid, they redid it for the opioid, and they created new expenditure line items, created new revenue line items. So anytime there's something big like that, they do update that chart of accounts, and so, in order to make sure everything's recorded properly, the department heads just need to know to use that.
Yep.
And you never know when the feds are gonna, if they go out there and audit any of that opioid stuff.
And they could come out anytime
Right.
with any of your federal grants, you know,
Mhm.
it's not been as prevalent, in the last few years as it had been, but it used to be, they would come out and audit CDBG, or the FEMA guys would come out and audit your FEMA. And if they didn't like the way that you had your stuff, they would make you pay it back.
That kind of wound up being a mess on the tobacco thing years ago, and they're trying to avoid this with the opioid.
Right. And that's why they're trying to make sure that everybody's on the same page, everybody's reporting it using the same account numbers, and that way everything is hopefully smooth going forward, so. Okay, so then on page 83, we have a finding about preparation of full disclosure financial statements. This is in about 95% of the reports that we issue. It's just because you don't have a CPA on staff that does your GAAP report and your external reporting full accrual financial statements, along with all the required disclosures. So because we assist with that process, we're required to have a finding. We have to jump through as far as making proposed adjusting journal entries, and then Chris ultimately has to approve the financial statements before they get issued and take responsibility for them. So they are the county's financial statements. We're just assisting with the preparation. So on page 84, we have a finding about the bank recs and cash balancing. This year, when it rolled over, Tyler numbers did not match, and that is a common Tyler problem that should not happen, because July 1st numbers should tie to what June 30th had. So the ending balance on June 30, when you roll that forward to July 1st, it should match.
Right.
Shouldn't be any transactions out there in Never Land. It should match. Well, it didn't. And so then that causes issues with the balancing. So the balancing, and again, Tyler can't explain why it happens. I know it happens in more counties than just you guys. Last year we audited 4 Tyler counties, and of the 4, 2 of them had this issue. So we're at 50%. And I don't know that we've gone a year since version 10 came out where we have not had this problem with at least one of our counties. And they can't explain why it happens. So that's my frustration with Tyler.
Mhm.
You should be able to go from 5 o'clock, June 30th to 7 o'clock, you know, the morning of July 1st, and
Well, we even shut down early that day.
yeah.
And count the money.
Yeah.
They're involved in counting the money.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's a
It's
software.
it's what's in the.
It's a software.
It's a software
Yeah,
thing.
and then also, making sure that those reconciliations are happening, making sure you're using, the Iowa County Ledger is the report that Tyler has designated as the county general ledger, is the Iowa County Ledger. The only bad thing is you can run that 10 different ways and get 10 different answers. 10 different balances. So, I think the key is making sure that you're running the right Iowa County Ledger and then tying that back to what Gina has on her daily cash sheets. And if your cash sheets need to get modified, do it.
Mhm.
You have to deal with it every day, so make it easy for you, whatever you need to do. But, at the end of the day, whatever you have for balances for your CDs, for your investments, for your cash on hand, for your cash in bank, the total should match what's on Chris's Iowa County Ledger. And if it doesn't, you've got an issue.
So does that mean these two departments are just maybe running different ledgers?
And it could be in the way they're running it, but at the end of the day, what she says she's got for cash
That's what it needs to be.
is what it has to be.
Mhm.
Yeah. And, then there's different reasons why it might be off. Is there a transaction that's kind of hanging out there and not recorded? They're outstanding items. And she has a list of all the reconciling items that she does every month with outstanding checks, deposits in transit, all the little funny, if you have an NSF check or, all the little electronic withdrawals, ACHs that hit differently. This year we had $133,000 one that hit weird.
Well, we had it again this year because we had a payroll at the end of the month again.
Yeah, don't do that.
Gonna have to, if it gets close to the end of the month, at the end of the year, sorry,
Yeah.
gang, you're not gonna
Yeah.
get paid yet.
Yeah.
Let's roll into July.
Right?
But I'm sure that would make them all very happy.
I know,
Yeah.
I cried when I
But there,
seen that we were gonna have another payroll hit
it
on the
is
last day of the
because,
month.
because of the way Tyler posts. It hits one place, but it doesn't hit the other. It hits the general ledger, but it doesn't hit cash
Right.
balancing.
So
And that's just,
That's just a
I have the
software.
problem again.
and it's $133,000. So I mean, it's significant.
We pay how much to Tyler's
And
systems and they can't give us an answer. Love it.
And when she would see it and I would see it, ghostly white.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh God, what happened? What happened?
That's a panic attack.
Mhm.
And again, it's not just you guys. I mean, it's a Tyler thing. And they can't tell you why. You call them and ask them,
No,
and they can't tell you why. And they can't tell you why it posts one place and not the other. Well, in my thinking, if it's posting in general ledger, it should be posting in cash balancing, and it might be outstanding because it hasn't cleared the bank yet, but it still needs to be
It
somewhere.
should be out there.
Yeah, so I don't understand how that works. So,
Can they get by with having that answer?
well, and you usually have to talk to about 5 or 6 people.
Oh,
You get
God, yeah.
transferred 5 or 6
after you've
people.
been on hold for an hour.
Yeah,
Our weather people are more accurate than that.
yes. So I get very frustrated with that because I think that I think that when Gina walks out of her office at the end of the day, she should know that every transaction has posted, every transaction is recorded. The cash that she says on her daily balance sheet should match what Chris has on her ledger every day. I mean, that's how it works with other software systems. I guess in my mind, that's how it used to work with Eden, back when you guys had Eden before you switched over to that version 10. You walked out of the door every day and you knew that you were balanced and everything was correct and you could go home and relax. But now with version 10,
And this is the newest version.
and I'm really scared if they ever say they're coming out with something new and improved, because it has been very challenging for all of our counties. And like I said, it's not just you guys, it's every county that is on version 10. The auditors like the reporting, the real estate part of it is awesome. I really like the real estate module for it, but the financial reporting, not a fan.
And the software program is nationwide, and so then that's another thing, if you call in for support or get on with chat, you must remind them that you were from Iowa. Because Iowa has different requirements than what maybe Nebraska does.
Well, and
Even this last time, even when I called them this last time, the gal, I'm in chat with this lady and she's like, well, that's because you're running in an Iowa ledger. You need to run Nebraska. And I said,
Why would you run Nebraska?
I'm in Iowa County. Why would I do that? And she's like, oh, I guess you are. Well, that's reassuring.
yeah, Well, and they don't keep up with the, and Iowa, every state reports differently, Department of Management has your budget documents, your cash report documents, they have your accrual gap report documents, and everybody has a different chart of accounts, depending on what state you're in. And they're trying to keep up with all of that, and so they don't have anybody that's just focused in on what's going on in Iowa. The other thing, you guys luckily don't have tax increment financing and you don't have a lot of drainage because they don't know what stamped warrants are either. And you will talk to 10 people before you talk to somebody who might know what it is. And that system is really challenging as well. So,
How are things, is it in here when we have projected tax revenue and on property taxes and they're delinquent and we abate them and stuff like that? Is that reflected in any of this report?
the actual cash and the actual taxes collected is what's presented. And then if there's any delinquent receivables that are received in July and August, that's reflected in here. And then that deferred amount that is yet to be collected is reflected in here as well. But it doesn't single it out. I mean, it's in fund total, so. The general fund has a total for that, the, rural services fund, all of your fiduciary funds, so like your schools, your cities, your townships, that's in total and it's reflected in there, but it doesn't give you any detail about that.
So at the end of the year, your expected revenues may vary,
Mm-hmm,
and that would be,
based on what's collected.
Yeah.
Yeah, just because you think you're gonna collect everybody's taxes doesn't mean you are. So, yeah, if somebody pays, or if somebody pays ahead, we do have some counties where they've got large corporations where they, it's skewed because they're paying on a different schedule.
When we do abatement, we affect everybody.
Mhm.
Schools would like to write at 50%.
Yep. Okay, so then on page 85, we start the statutory reporting findings. And again, Code of Iowa compliance test work comes from the state auditor's office. They give us a guide, things that we have to look at every year, things that we look at every couple years, things they throw in for fun just to liven it up a little bit. So the first finding we had is about the budget. We did have the non-program and the capital projects functions that were exceeded during the year. And then we also had a couple of departments that had gone over. The departments need to be communicating with Chris and keeping an eye on that, letting her know when they need to do an appropriation. Also, the budget is required to be appropriated by resolution before any disbursements are made. So right away in July, first meeting, first thing out the gate, you can do that. I have some counties that do that in June. Totally at your discretion when you want to do it. Just make sure that that budget's getting
We
appropriated.
already did that because this was something that didn't know. And we've already done it for this budget. We did it, I think, the first part of May, end of April, because I was not gonna let it slip by, so I had a little write-up in the audit.
Yeah. And again, some of our counties will do it in June, just to make sure that they're, ready to go July 1. Some will do it as the very first agenda item of their July meeting. So it's whatever you're comfortable with, just as long as it gets done.
Yep.
So, and then again, like I said, the departments need to be looking at their budget and they know what their expenditures are gonna be. They know what their payroll is gonna be. They know if they're gonna buy a car or if they're gonna have a larger purchase. So they need to be looking at those and letting Chris know if they need to have either an appropriations adjustment or a budget amendment.
You say they do or they should?
They should. They should be looking at that. They should be looking at that every month. So, and again, I put that on the departments because they know the day to day, you guys should not have to micromanage the departments, we're all very capable of handling that. And they know better than you what their expenditures are gonna be because they're in the day to day, they're there every day. They know if they're gonna have a project come up or if they're gonna need a new vehicle or what they're gonna have for payroll or overtime or whatever. So yeah, I do put that on the departments. The second one we have here is about questionable expenditures. And now for this fiscal year during our test work, we did not note any expenditures that we would deem as questionable. Now that does not mean they did not exist. It just means that what we selected for testing all had a public purpose. So Public purpose has been something we've been kind of been pounding home the last couple of years and making sure that each expenditure does have a public benefit to it. So, but luckily, everything that we looked at this year, it had that public purpose documented and we didn't have anything that we needed to disclose in the audit report.
Believe me, that's been in a lot of conversation.
It has been, and our state auditor, Rob Sand, that has been kind of a hot topic for him. He was a fraud prosecutor prior to this, being in office as a state auditor, and that's just something he's very passionate about, is making sure expenditures have public purpose. So I do want to talk about related parties. On page 86, we did have several related parties that were identified. The Code of Iowa identifies $6,000 as the threshold for potential conflict of interest. All of those are well under that, and most of it is election worker. So again, this becomes a transparency disclosure. There isn't a finding related with it. The next finding that we have then is in regards to the board minutes. The board had gone into closed section on 2 separate events to discuss matters related to the county. And again, tests and samples. We didn't look at every single closed session. We had just picked a handful. And
This
these,
was in October.
October of
That's prior to
2022.
you.
Yeah. And then the documentation of the vote of each member on the question of holding the closed session. The code requires it to be a roll call vote, and it requires the minutes to document that. So all 3 of your names have to be listed. All 3 of your votes have to be listed. It's just a stickler Code of Iowa compliance thing. So, just making sure that the minutes, every time you go into a closed session, they document the exemption, which is usually you've got a little letter. Yeah, whatever your code section is, and then just make sure that the minutes document out all of your names and how you voted on the question of whether or not to go into a closed session. And then this will be resolved. Next finding on page 87 is in regards to financial position. The Emergency Management Fund continued to have a deficit net position at June 30. And I think that is going to be resolved hopefully by the end of this fiscal 24, I hope. It had been a significant amount for fiscal 22. It was down to a net deficit of 1267 at the end of 2023. So hopefully it's resolved going forward. So the next finding is about donations. And again, the Code of Iowa and the Constitution of Iowa prohibit public entities from making donations or contributions to private not-for-profits. And so we have encouraged, and it's understandable that they provide services the county maybe can't.
Yeah.
So if you have a service agreement in place with Pathways, then this goes away.
I got service agreements in place with our other ones, but Pathways never filled those out and returned them.
Then you might want to consider funding at that point. Because if it is a private not-for-profit, which it appears to be,
Well, that was at the end of 2023, though.
Yep. So if there has been a service agreement in place going forward, then this finding will be resolved as well.
We did get one of them.
I sent one to them. I dropped it off at their office.
We received it back and must apparently not on file.
I don't remember receiving it back.
And again, this was for fiscal 23's contribution, so, that could have changed between now and then too. So.
Yeah, so that, I don't have my financial software pulled up, so it could have been something that was paid like in the fall of 2022.
Okay.
So
I
just,
didn't send the agreements out till like last June.
so just make sure in the future that, if you're gonna make contributions to those, that there is a service agreement in place, because, a lot of them are providing a service, so.
And I think that's one of the contracts through the opioid settlement with Pathways, wasn't it?
She's part of the
Provider.
opioid abatement process.
Right.
Wonder if is that money that can be paid out of that fund?
I don't know, we're gonna have to look forward to see if we can find that agreement.
Okay.
Now it's a whole different thing, like for the money we give the fair board, that's all,
That's
that's
code.
covered in code.
That's covered in code. Yep. Yep. It's just like the private not-for-profits, food banks, historical societies are covered under the code, the fairs, the libraries, that's all under the code. It's the other little agencies that
Like our-
tend to be,
Economic development,
Yeah.
tourism.
Watersheds fall under that?
That I don't know off the top of my head.
I don't either.
We
I
have
don't know.
28 agreements with the watersheds, though, don't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
2080s.
Oh, then you're,
Then
then
we're good
that's,
with that.
yep.
As long as
Yep.
we have the 2080.
Hmm.
Okay.
How about our supplement dollars that from ARPA that are going for the ambulance service?
You got a 2080 agreement.
Yeah,
Like,
2080 agreement. Yep, so you're covered.
So that 2080 will cover that.
Okay, so then next finding is on page 88 in regards to the code of ordinances. The code requires that those, code of ordinances are recodified every 5 years and that hadn't been updated, so that's something that needs to happen.
And that's kind of
Right,
been a
so-
vicious circle, because even before I took office, the previous auditor stated it's something that needed to get done, and it's something that the county attorney always did. When I was visiting with Elizabeth, when they were here doing the audit, I reached out to Sean, and Sean's like, no, that's something the county auditor does.
Everybody
So
does
So
it.
it's currently a tennis game. It does need to be done. I would be more than happy to help with it, but I don't feel that falls in my duties.
How often do you look at the code of ordinances? You know what your ordinances are.
I don't.
It's like, I think planning and zoning usually deals with our ordinances. Like the most heavily is,
But that's just their portion.
Yeah.
right,
I mean, we got the whole,
right.
we got the whole.
Enforcement, you name it.
And we have some counties that the county attorney does it. We have some counties that the county auditor does it. We have some counties that one of the supervisors takes it on. I mean, everybody does it different. We have had some counties that have actually hired outside sources to do it.
I was gonna say, let's just send it to Ayers and Cooney.
So, it's up to you how you want to handle it. It's just one of those things that needs to be taken care of and however you choose to take care of it. It's up to
Outside
you.
source, what kind of expenditures are you looking at? Do you have any idea?
That I have no idea. That's not something that we do, so I couldn't tell you how much that,
I
and,
didn't know if it
it's
showed
been,
up in any of your auditing
It-
reports.
I guess I haven't tracked it back to know, I just know that they contracted with somebody to do it. I guess I haven't
Yeah.
paid much attention to.
ISAC would probably be a good resource to find out.
They might.
When I was with the city, we had to do ours and we set up a committee of volunteers that came out in one day a week and would take sections of it,
Yep.
make modifications or whatever, suggestions, and then,
We've had updated ordinances since we and you came in.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's updated ordinances out there.
yeah.
Yeah.
This is the way you
Now,
go through all of
Put
them
in a certain place.
and get them codified.
Well, that's the other issue. So anything that was done before I took office that hasn't been codified since then, it's gonna be a cat and mouse game for me to try and find that information.
Well, and I would hope that the last time that the recodification was done, and again, I don't know when that was, I just know that this was one of the questions that came up on our random auditor of state, things for this year. So I don't have that date when it was done, but, hopefully you'd be able to take that one and move forward, so.
As a city, we always used Ayers and Cooney, and then once we changed an ordinance, and that just went off to Ayers and Cooney, and they put it in the code book, and it was done.
Yeah. But see,
How much that cost?
cities do the ordinances differently than what the counties do too, so it's kind of a different process, different. So I don't know. Maybe worth a phone call. And, like I said, I don't know what the process was last time, if it was something Sean did, if it was something Cindy did, hopefully.
Could have been prior to Sean.
Well, these ordinances, when you do that, it's something you're gonna have to, each department who it affects is gonna have to go through the review
Mhm.
process with, too.
Yeah, they're gonna
It's
wanna.
gonna take a lot of work and time to review everything. I mean, for example, I go back to when I was on the school board. I mean, you're dealing with policies there, but it seemed like every monthly meeting, we had a new policy we had to review every month. There was a different one to put out there.
Yep.
We definitely want to get that language codified.
What?
We definitely want to get our ordinance codified.
Yes. Okay, so then the next finding then is in regard to the 911 service board budget, and the 911 service board did go over their budget during the fiscal year. Now, they have the same option to go ahead and do the amendment process, same as what the county does, so they just need to be keeping an eye on that and, make an amendment if they're going to be exceeding what they have budgeted for expenditures. On page 89, we have a finding about the 509A filing in regards to health insurance. And so the 509A is an actuarial report that is due to the insurance commissioner within 90 days of the end of the plan year. So Chris didn't know she needed to do
So
that.
how this all transpired was when we had, I can't even remember his name, when we were with Oxian, the prior broker.
Lindsay.
Bob Lindsay, yes, thank you. That was something they always did. So then when we changed brokers, which was a fabulous move, that isn't something that they did. I had no idea. I think it was Chris,
Mhm.
your Chris, that told me, and I just kind of looked at him like, what? I don't even have any idea what you're talking about. So I reached out to Ryan. And he got me in touch with a company that does this. I started pushing out reports. He started getting reports from Wellmark that was needed, and we did get them caught up. So,
Okay, so that concludes the items that made it to the report. There were several other non-report findings that we did discuss as we went through the audit process. A couple that I want to bring to your attention, with conservation. Checks are being written from the separately maintained conservation bank account for the My County parks instead of running the expenditures through the claims process. So because conservation participates in My County parks, which is a great thing, they have their own separate checking account for that.
Right.
That is just for My County parks. Nothing else should be going through that. Everything else, if they have a purchase they want to make, needs to go through the claims process. Needs to be, approved by their conservation board, goes through here.
Right, was that part of they have the Friends of Fontana?
That is my next thing, that they are having their checks written to Friends of Fontana. Now, Friends of Fontana is a foundation. It is separate. You gotta be real careful, because it sounded like Friends of Fontana was having the county purchase things, and then Friends of Fontana was writing a check to reimburse the county to take advantage of the sales tax exemption.
they would reimburse, so like example, they would go to Norby's and certain expenses and this has been going on since I've been here.
Right, I remember it when I was at County
Yeah.
Conservation.
Yes.
We
So
put right-
the purchases would be for conservation, some of it, I'm gonna say for the animal display that Friends of Fontana paid for. So they just put it on one charge account. So then when the claim would come in here, it'd be, the county needs to issue a check for this amount, and then here's an attached check from Friends of Fontana, please mail that in with it.
Yeah, now, so some of those checks from Friends of Fontana, were those for the fees that are charged to use My County parks?
That I can't tell you. I don't have that information. I didn't do that.
I think we used to.
I
write the-
don't think
write
it
the
was for that,
check
though.
for fee.
Because the way that this is
Friendly.
worded is that, and again, it was one of my staff that wrote this, that instead of running expenditures through the claims process, so that tells me it was for supplies, it was for,
Right, and then so they would pick up the supplies, and then My County, or then the Friends of Fontana group would write that amount out because and they're a 501c corporation, they're a
Mhm.
foundation, so they have their own tax exemption. It's just, it was all picked up by one person, or else with that particular software, there was like a $2 fee or $4 fee per transaction. And so I believe they wrote out the check then for those transaction amounts, and they would send it in with the claim.
I do know
Which
that
is-
that is something since the day I was hired
It's
here.
very
I
great.
fought. Because even though you are a 501c3, you are not a sales tax exempt.
Correct.
And I fought that and I fought that. And going forward, I do know for a fact that it's being done different.
Right.
Ben has changed things. He's had meetings with Black Hawk County's conservation director on how they went through the process of pulling this Friends of Fontana basically into their budget. And having, I don't want to say budget, their own budget for expenses that the Friends of Fontana
Right, yeah.
wanted.
Because there were times when the Friends of Fontana, like if we're doing a large tree project, the Friends of Fontana would donate X amount toward this tree project. Well, that all comes in on one invoice, so then they would write that check out for that part of their donation. So,
Yes,
yeah.
but in
that was
reality,
done.
that should be billed, either they give the donation directly to conservation or needs to be billed to Friends of Fontana. But as I said,
Right.
going
Mhm.
forward, I know this is all changing for the better, because
Right.
Ben was very uncomfortable with the way. it
Well,
was
and the
being
other
done.
thing is that my county parks checking account is just for the collection of those fees and remittance to the treasurer. It's just like the recorder's office
Okay,
and their checkbook and the sheriff's office and their
yep,
civil.
all right, that was actually the checkbook that I wrote the amount out of, now that you say
Yeah,
that.
yeah, so it should just be, they have collected this, they need to remit it to the treasurer so that it can be recorded on the general ledger, so. What that should be for.
We did that checkbook.
Another note, and something to think about, as far as publishing your claims. Right now, are you still doing it once a month?
Mhm.
The guidance that we've got from the state auditor's office is wanting it published when they're approved. So something to think about.
Good place.
Every
Yeah.
2 weeks, yeah.
I guess the state auditor's office has had a couple issues. They didn't go into a whole lot of detail. That was just one of the recommendations. They do training with us every spring.
Mhm.
That was one of the recommendations. Some of the things that they're seeing is that, if the minutes say that the claims were approved, they
That
expect
should
to
be
see the
the-
claims published with the minutes, which makes sense. It makes sense. I think eventually we're gonna get away from this publication anyway, because it's expensive and you can put it all online. So
Newspapers disappearing.
they are. So, but
Is that
just
gonna change our newspaper feed?
think so, because it's the same
It's
listing.
still it's still the
Yeah.
same list,
Yeah.
whether you do it
When we.
every other week when you approve them, or if you do it at the end of the month, it's still
Yeah.
the same list.
Yeah, and again, the lists are getting published, and so it meets our testing, we're happy with that, but again, the state auditor's office had provided some guidance saying, maybe if the minutes are saying you published, that you paid claims, that listing should be published with the minutes. So, makes sense.
Yep.
The other thing that we talked about already a little bit is about my frustration with the Iowa County Ledger and not rolling over. The other fun thing about this was last year for the general supplemental fund, the detail, so you get the detail printout of all the activity that happened in that fund, didn't tie back to what was on the general ledger, and Tyler couldn't tell us why. So, if you went through the revenues and added them all up, you got 1,500,000. If you look at the Iowa County Ledger, it said 1,600,000. But they can't tell you why. There weren't any adjusting journal entries that showed up. Yeah. Yeah. So another little fun fact about Tyler, it doesn't always work. And then also there was a 30-cent balance in the mental health fund, which I hope that went away. Did it go away? It went away. So we don't have to worry about that. The last thing that I need to talk to you guys about is your American Rescue Plan Act expenditures.
Yes.
All right, federal dollars. If you spend over $750,000 of federal money in a year, you're required to have a single audit. With the exception of, if you went over because it was American Rescue Plan Act, you get to have an alternative compliance examination engagement instead of a full-fledged single audit. That is a good thing. That is a very good thing. So you
So it's called a
spent,
single engagement.
a single audit is if you have over $750,000 in federal money. It's an alternative compliance examination engagement. If you
Say
have.
that 5 times.
Yeah,
fast.
if you went over because of the American Rescue Plan Act, and what they did was OMB said, we have a lot of smaller cities and counties that usually don't have to have single audit because they don't usually spend $750,000 of federal money. So this is a unique thing for them, and it's just this one program. So they decided then that if you went over the $750,000 because of your spending the ARPA, they're gonna give you this other option. So normally with a single audit, you have a 200-page audit guide that we have to fill out, compliance testing. It's very, very particular. It's very, yeah. And you have to submit a reporting package to the Federal Audit Clearinghouse. With this, we're just looking at your American Rescue Plan spending, of which you had $1,702,628 that was spent during fiscal 23. That's what put you over. So because that's what put you over that $750,000 threshold, we were able to do the alternative compliance examination engagement. We just looked at your ARPA dollars. Again, tests and samples, we didn't look at every single expenditure that you made of ARPA. We had to have a percentage of coverage. I think we covered like 80% of it. And then we had to go ahead and issue an independent accountant's report, which we did. And then Chris was required to submit that to the US Treasury. So I already sent her copy. Hopefully she's already got that submitted and done.
Mhm.
The Federal Audit Clearinghouse, overwent a major overhaul in October of last year. That's generally where these reports are supposed to be submitted with the Federal Audit Clearinghouse, but as of yesterday, they are still not accepting these because they're not prepared, so. They will accept single audits, but they're not accepting these. So she's filed as much as she can. When and if it ever does become available for them to submit this to the Federal Audit Clearinghouse, we will do so. But until they make that available, we're just kind of sitting around waiting. And I'm hoping, for next year too, if you spend a significant amount, that we'll be able to do this instead of a full-blown single audit. Because a full-blown single audit takes at least an additional week to do all the test work and reporting that is required. So hopefully we can do this again.
Fingers crossed.
Yes.
Is there any counties out there, because of the issues, the problems, you can't get answers from Tyler? That said bye-bye.
I have one that's looking right now for another software. And I have one that's threatening, and then I have one that just came on about a year and a half ago, so, they're still hopeful. So, hope has not died with them yet, but
How long is our contract for?
the other bad thing,
Probably.
I'm assuming I'm definitely
Unless you,
it's
How long
an
is it?
annual thing.
3 years?
2017,
wasn't it?
we did the conversion.
And then was it 18 and for financials, something like that?
Yeah. And here's the other thing, the other major competitor out there is Solutions, which I'm sure you've heard of Solutions and counties that have had it. They've had major upheaval in their staffing when Harris bought them out it's been a year and a half, 2 years ago. A lot of the programmers and a lot of the personnel had been there and they'd worked with Greg their entire careers. And so they retired when he sold the company. So they've had a lot of turnover in their staff as well. So right now they're kind of struggling also. Now, I will still take Solutions over Tyler any day of the week, even with all their issues. My wish is that the state would just come up with a software
A
that all of the
uniform
counties
program.
use. Yeah,
Yeah.
that way, when they're making changes to the legislature, they can go in and they can have their programmers program it. And so when you guys are trying to run your taxes, everybody's the same.
Yeah.
And same with, they can work with Department of Management with all the forms and it would all be the same. That is kind of my wish list of what would happen.
There we go, we got until July 31st to have ISAC put that down on the priority thing for legislation priorities.
Yep. Yep, and I just think it's beneficial because Tyler, the staff rolls over there. I mean, you guys, I don't think have had one consistent person that you've been able to call.
No,
Rebecca.
Yeah.
But that's real estate in.
And real estate's beautiful.
With
It's the
taxes, yeah.
financial end of it that stinks.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's what I would really like to see is for the state to take on that project and have statewide software that all the counties use. And so that way you'd be able to call all of your, any county and how do you do this? And, we've had a lot of auditors that have retired in the last couple of years. We've had a lot of treasurers that have retired for the last couple of years. And it would just be nice if everybody was on the same page and looking at the same thing. And when they make changes in the legislature, that they would just go ahead and be able to program it right there. Same with the TIF and the drainage and all that. There would be people that would actually understand what you're talking about when you have a question on TIF and drainage.
Do you know if that's ever been presented?
I know that I've been harping about it for a while, but I don't know that any,
You got to the right ears.
I think there's been one auditor, I think, that maybe has said something, but I don't know how loudly she expressed her.
We got someone auditor that can speak loudly sometimes.
Darn tootin' I did.
But like
We
I
have
said.
talked about it at our summer association,
Mhm.
but the problem is there's so much more priority for election laws that, we only get to pick a few.
Overshadow.
Yeah,
Well,
I guarantee almost every one of our legislative priorities is regarding elections.
and I know that the whole solutions thing kind of blew up here a couple weeks ago because their main person left. They were down to kind of one person that was had been there for a very long time and was very knowledgeable and helpful, and she left on July 3rd. So the solutions counties that have been happy for so long, I think, are not happy anymore. So a lot of them might be more vocal about
Yep.
doing something about the software, because they're not getting the support. I mean, it's still not as bad as Tyler is some days, but it's deteriorating.
Well, you know, like for another example, when it comes to, I mean, Gina, you brought this back from your conference. Her and I've been here for almost 4 years. She got information and actually criteria of how we can set up reports for our year end.
Mhm.
Which you've been having,
I mean, it's been truly a hit and miss, and we have been teaching ourselves
Mhm.
because that information isn't available. I mean, this is gonna be a godsend now, and you can go in and you can set those reports up with the criteria, save it. So every year you go back in and hit it, all you gotta do is update the dates and go.
And you were provided that by who?
A couple of other treasurers.
Not from Tyler.
No,
because
it's
Tyler's not gonna tell you that because
because it's how they figured out a way
Well,
to do it, and that's.
Even when I was looking at the reporting one, so when there's a report group that's not assigned.
Yep.
When I originally was having problems, I called Tyler. And they're like, we have to run this report, or go in here to this page and look at the liability column. So you sort it by liabilities and then go through and try to find that amount that you're looking for doesn't have a report group assigned. So I'm like, oh, okay. Well, then I just got this, when I went to meetings this last time, got this workbook from one of the other treasurers that's an end of the month reports that we should be running. I've been here 5 years.
See,
No, never seen it.
Well, and that's the thing with
But
Tyler.
in that book, there's a report that you just run and it shows you. Okay, so why didn't Tyler ask me that when I was on the phone with them instead of making me go into our program, into the GLs,
how much time?
change it to, oh my gosh, you don't even want to know.
Well, and Tyler is really bad. If they have a fix for one county, some county, and we ran into this a couple years ago, we had new auditors that were running taxes. And, they skipped a step, and there was one of the auditors that had been there for years and years and, said, hey, this isn't right, we're missing a step with our tax, because they give them the print screens. And there was an auditor that'd been there for years, and she's like, no, we're skipping a step here. And so she called into Tyler, and sure enough, they'd skipped a step in their instructions. But they didn't tell everybody. So if you didn't know, you ran your taxes wrong and got to redo them. Because she found out in talking to another treasurer who had called her and said, hey, this doesn't look right.
It's not right.
She's like, well, I found this last week. Didn't Tyler, let you know? Well, no, they didn't send or push out any notifications. And so then she, went ahead and got on Basecamp and sent it out so that everybody knew that there was an issue and here's the page that's missing. So you don't have to rerun your taxes. But the newer auditor that didn't realize they'd skipped a step, she had to start all over.
Well, and when we were at iCube this last time, they said that they were gonna try to go away from these workflows, for helping us do our end of year things and our tax billing and all that, because they didn't want to update all of that stuff anymore. And it's like, well, us treasurer, we don't know what all you're supposed to do. You guys have to give
how
us
many things do you do once a year? And you
exactly
gotta
a lot.
Be refreshed on how to do it.
That's mainly everything we do is
Yeah.
once a year.
Correct.
Hey, that sounds like just a shattered system.
It's
Oh,
been a
yeah.
headache.
Like I said, the real estate side is so good. It's just easy to use. The reports are user friendly, but the financial and the cash balancing for the treasurer side is just, even some of the auditors' reports are okay if you can get them set up
Yeah,
correctly.
that's
for
the
the
key, you
Iowa.
can figure out how to set them
Yeah.
up. You may
Yeah.
run it 20 times till you get it. but-
Yeah, but once you have that set up for the Iowa reporting, it's good, but that financial side and the cash side, cashiering is very frustrating.
Is there anybody out there that's got the real estate and with Tyler and solutions for the rest of it?
There's somebody that has the real estate side for Tyler and their own for the financial.
Yep. Ames, or Story County does something.
Well, and
Required.
like Cerro Gordo County, they had their own MIS department and they wrote their own software. That is my favorite. I love that place because you go in there, you have a new governmental accounting standards board statement that's coming out. And I go in there and I sit with their programmer and I say, okay, this is what I need. And he goes like this. And I say, yes, thank you, sir. and walk out and, but they also budget gap basis. They don't budget cash basis. So they're a little weird that way too. But yeah, that's actually probably my favorite software to work with just because the programmer's right there and you tell them what you need. You tell them, okay, this is what the code did. This is what I need. And they were
They got
able
it
to,
patented.
yeah. Yeah. But yeah, they had actually written their own real estate too, but they are going to Tyler Real Estate now because they were gonna have to translate it. Because the computer language, I guess, was old and that's above my pay grade. I don't know how all that works, but anyway, they're gonna have to translate the programs into a new computer language. And so instead of doing that on the real estate side, they went ahead and purchased the Tyler, because that is, like I said, I really like that. I just don't like the financial side. So they're rewriting their program.
I hope
In a
this
new
individual
language.
they got over there is young and they're gonna keep him.
He's a good guy. Yep.
Does the board have any other questions?
We don't have to show up for the lashing post any place soon, or?
No, nobody's going to jail this year.
Oh, good. Public comments? Public comments? Motion?
I would make a motion to accept the Gardner Company audit review, place on file.
Second,
First and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
thank you, Elizabeth.
Yeah, no problem.
Very informative.
Another motion? Killing me, John, I'm gonna starve to death.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Already asked for public comments.
Second.
First and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.